that why the historical guys are sticking
Yeah,
around?
they are sticking around.
Oh, I see.
It was Heather that was being so loud out there, I know.
Yeah. Rabble rouser.
I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees on June 9th, 2014. Phyllis, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Andrew Muckle. Mayor Pro Tem Joe Sorelli.
Here.
Trustees Elia Gagor.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Lisa Skuma.
Here.
Deborah Williams. Town Manager, Assistant Town Manager Martin Todd.
Here.
Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Harden here.
The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. And before taking the motion on that, I'd like to address two items on it. Number one, item 7D on the consent agenda is not going to be addressed tonight. And secondly, on item 6, I would like to move the Historical Commission Award up one spot ahead of the presentation of the 2013 audit, and then do the audit right after that presentation. So that's the only things I'd like to see on the agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Next is reports, questions, and issues of members of the board. And Trustee Gomez, do you have anything that you'd like to report?
I do have several things, and I'll try to keep them pretty short. One is I had a lovely time at the Chamber dinner, and that dinner is, I think, a really nice networking event, and congratulations to the town's businesses and so on. And as always, and I hate to expect it, but it was run really well, so thanks to the Chamber for that. I wanted to congratulate two people for the Boulder performances. Our first place finisher was a 17-year-old who finished in 30th place overall, and I apologize, but I have no idea how to pronounce the name. It was Cerakegeberkidame. So congratulations, and the key was it was a 17-year-old, which is pretty awesome, 17-year-old young man. And then the first woman finisher was a 29-year-old who finished 18th among the women, Shannon Miller, with 37 minutes, so.
You mean from Superior?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, our top Superior finishers, so. I went to the Trail Day, which was an excellent event, including the hawk and raptor and whatever demonstration. I had seen them before, but this one was even better. It was really a great event. That was terrific. I had a coffee buzz that was fine. Went to an interesting meeting in Louisville where they considered their trash hauler contract and provided some testimony there. And the board did something unexpected, I think, which was they looked beyond cost and ultimately picked a hauler that was one that was characterized by providing better service, better convenience, and better incentives for their residents. And I think it's a good lesson for all council members to realize there's more than just cost. And then we were happy to host the Consortium of Cities here at this building this last week, and it was pretty fun, and we had a lot of enthusiasm for it. Was a tour of the town center across the street. Some of the representatives from Louisville and other places were extremely, energized by what was going on over there, and oh my gosh, it looks so different than last time, whatever. So that went really, really well. But in particular, beyond that, the agenda was a topic that was one that I suggested as I think very important. And I think that over the last few years with the recession, over the last year with the flood, I think there's a lot of hidden hardship in town. And there's such a problem with people not wanting to embarrass themselves, or I don't know what quite the word, there's pride and that sort of thing, and people don't want neighbors to know what's happening and that sort of thing, and it makes it really hard to reach out in a way that's effective at getting the word out. Boulder County has an amazing array of services, and it's not something where you can have a workshop, because who wants to be seen in the workshop on this? So I suggested to Boulder County that they do a little web walkthrough of their services, because it's beyond just food stamps or that sort of stuff. It's a whole variety of things. And so I hope they go by the 80-20 rule, which is what I was trying to encourage them to do. I always hate it when government feels like they have to have the most polished whatever before they plant something. And with 20% of the effort, you can get 80% of what you need. And I hope that they do it quickly and that they do it well. And one of the things that they mentioned was that oftentimes people don't know where the entry point is, and they have a philosophy of doing any point of entry is the right point of entry, where they try to make sure that every point of entry knows the entire array of things that they offer. They did mention that people often go to faith-based organizations or things like that who may or may not know. And the reason that I'm encouraging them strongly to put a video together is because it's something that receptionists at faith-based organizations, receptionists at our town hall, and others could quickly, we could require them to watch it once, 5 or 10 minute video, and be done. And the word would be out without the staff at Boulder County going from place to place to place to place, and all the delay that entails. So in any case, I hope that town might harp on Boulder County to get them to follow up on that and do it. And I totally encourage anybody who has the least bit of issue, anonymously call Boulder County, and I can make sure that the right phone numbers and things are in the next newsletter. But again, it's a whole variety of different kinds of services that some you might not even realize that you need. That's kind of how diverse they are. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Gagos?
I too attended the Trail Day Saturday morning. It was just a glorious day and had a great turnout. Yes, there was the Fish and Wildlife had a hawk and owl, but the most amazing thing was this 26-year-old eagle that I guess has been in captivity for 24 years. Just a remarkable bird, just beautiful, and just the explanation in their life it was captivating for little kids, and I know Sandy and I were captivated just by watching this bird. It was great. So I think this Trails Day can grow and become a significant event. Kind of like we do with Arbor Day, it could be on that same caliber. So it was a great idea. Thank you to OSAC. I also went and kind of toured Calmonte, which I hadn't done before on Saturday, and look at their models. They had tremendous traffic. I was there maybe 45 minutes and looked at the homes and talked to the two Donnas, I guess, Donna and Donna. They had great turnout. These are beautiful builders, and I was very impressed by what I saw and how beautiful it is. And so I think that's one of those developments that's a home run for our town. A couple of little items. I noticed that Pizza Hut was advertised as a new business opened, and that's like 6 months after it opened. So I don't know how that happened, but I would like not to see that again. If we have a new business, we should be on top of that and advertise it the first week they open. So, and there's some other new businesses in town. I think we need to do a better job, promoting them and making sure there's local interest in going to those places. And the last thing is, and this is not towards anyone in particular, but it may be either a pet peeve of mine or I'm just getting too old and getting close to senile, but if somebody is part of a committee, whether it's RCAC, PROSTAC, OSAC, doesn't matter what committee they are, when they come here and they speak to the board, I'd like to be very, very clear if they're speaking for themselves or for the committee. Because recently we had some that to me, or the historical committee, but you guys don't do that, but I just want to make sure, if they're speaking for themselves as a resident of Superior, that's one thing. If they're speaking for Superior, for the committee, that's a whole different thing, and I want that to be very, very clear, both in the minutes and just for us, for our understanding. So, just, I'm putting it up and out there, so when somebody comes up, just want to make sure they clarify. Thank you.
Can I say one of the things you reminded me of, when you're talking about a new business, it's not quite new. I go to Doug's Day Diner a lot on the weekends, and this last weekend, a week ago, I was part of a pay-it-forward thing. So someone took it upon themselves to pay for someone else's dinner anonymously, or breakfast, and that happened, I think they got it to 6 generations. So I thought that was pretty amazing. It's cool.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Trustee Pennington.
Yes, the Trails Day event is a National Trails Day that we participated in for the first time, and I too was very impressed. I am the OSAC liaison, so I know all the background work. None of this happens by accident. Staff and members of that committee really put together a great plan, and it was really fantastic. Those kids out there were just all eyes, and the adults were all eyes as well, so I think that's a good thing to repeat next year. Chamber dinner likewise was very well run. I suspect Heather's going to talk to that issue. I've never seen it so crowded over there, so I'm curious to see if we had record attendance over there, but it was almost every seat filled. And just a fantastic event, and I'm sure she'll go through the winners of the various categories, but very deserving people. I've gotten questions, and I asked the question, I'm sure a lot of people have noticed all the dead evergreens as we come up McCaslin towards Rock Creek Parkway. So if somebody knows what's causing that and what the town plans to do about it, I think I would definitely like to hear that. Can you address that in your reports?
I can.
Okay. And then last month, I did not vote for the minutes because I said there were some issues I had with them. I've had a conversation with the town manager on that, and he assures me he's putting that on a work session or an agenda, because I happen to think it's inhumane to expect any human being to capture the essence of some of these very involved PD and PDA and discussions. There is no way. I think Phyllis does a fine job, but we simply cannot expect you to catch the nuance of so many of these issues. So I'm proposing we be brought into the 21st century on that and cut Phyllis some slack in terms of how difficult that process is. So I'm assured that's going to be coming forward. That's all.
Trustee Hanson?
Just to follow up on trustee Gregor's comments about new businesses in town. Martin, when a new business is going to open, there's a permit process they go through, correct? So we know the dates that they're going to open. So if we could put that into the process and put it into the email that on this date, this business is planning to open, come down and visit them, then we're ahead of the curve. Thank you. Yeah, thanks. That's it.
I just have a couple of things. I, too, was greatly impressed by the Chamber dinner, and it's an event I look forward to every year, so thanks again to the Chamber for doing a wonderful job. I also attended a couple of meetings in the past week. One was the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council. They met this past Monday, a week ago today, and the essence of that meeting was the Department of Energy giving their annual report of what the results of their monitoring has been. The one piece that I sensed in the surface water part, they were somewhat overwhelmed with sampling water during the flood time. So there was just too much water. So they're catching up on getting results if or any problems regarding surface water. But there's no indication yet of problems, but that's my simple understanding. It's not really an intelligent understanding.
In the past, when there's been heavy rains, they've seen a spike in some of the...
Sometimes, yeah. But there's nothing quite that matched last year's.
Right.
I mean, they could always catch the samples that they needed. This overwhelmed their sampling.
Yeah.
I mean, they used jugs, and the jugs were full, right away.
Did they mention if there's increased erosion, or was there erosion control?
That did not get brought up as being a problem that I heard. I also had to leave an hour early for a dental appointment, which was a lot worse than the annual report. The other meeting I went to was the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meeting that is almost quarterly, and that relates to our common interest on Highway 36, but what right now is gaining more interest is the Northern Area Mobility Study and the arterial BRTs, seeking to get some traction on those, and a Tiger grant was applied for, and in the next month or so they're going to be approaching the RTD board and seeking full support from the RTD board for those projects. That is all I have to report.
So if I can, I attended the Friday 3:30 events for the Rocky Flats 25th anniversary.
Did you go out to the Ravenna Center?
Commemoration, and the reason they had trouble measuring, Indiana was closed, and that was literally flowing like Coal Creek over Indiana. There is no way, and as a matter of fact, a lot of concern was expressed
Sure.
at what was deposited in Stanley Lake as a result of that, because it was unable to be, there's no way
Yeah.
you could have monitored all that. So, there are concerns.
Yeah, there are concerns, and there's a lot of catching up to do on what the status is, I'd say. Thank you for that. Did you enjoy that session on Friday? I meant to get out to it on Saturday, but didn't get over my other things.
One of our local people, Michelle Ramos, was one of the participants. So,
Okay.
yeah, it was nicely done, and I've heard only great things about the whole rest of the weekend.
Mr. Acting Town Manager, anything to report?
Thank you, Mr. Pro-Tem. Just a couple of items. Just a quick response to Trustee Pennington's question about the evergreen trees. Park Rec and Open Space Director Patrick Hammer has been working with the manager's office over the last couple of weeks to coordinate with our arborists, our consulting arborists, to help us figure out some of the causes and some of the potential solutions. So we're looking at replacing 40 to 50 trees over the next few weeks in some of the higher, more visible places. As the plans for that project are culminated and finalized over the next few days, look for something maybe in this week's digest with a little bit more detail. But yes, the combination of factors, the environmental factors of some cold winters and some hot summers and inundating rain, and then some very opportunistic bugs, for lack of a better word, have made it tough for a number of evergreens in some of the higher visibility places.
How many did we lose?
Right now, we're looking at maybe in the neighborhood of 50.
And we're going to replace all of them?
We're going to replace all of them, but not always in the same place, not always with the same species.
And again, I know I've raised this every time this happens along Castle and everywhere else. If trees aren't meant to grow there, why do we keep planting trees there? I don't understand that. So I really, if it's a poor environment for trees, let's figure something else out. So anyway.
Yeah, that would be the main reason for School Lots on looking at some different species that might be more hospitable to those places, because we have some places where evergreens do really well, some places where they don't, just trying to find the right species in the right spot.
But if this is like a second or a third tree that's died in a similar location, then at some point we should cut bait, in my opinion. Sorry.
Anything else, Mr. Town Manager?
I'll touch base on a couple of the news items that are included in the digest. If you didn't have a chance to look at that yet, the Telephone Town Hall is scheduled for the 5th Monday of this month, so that's June 30th. It'll be in this room at 7 o'clock. We'll have a chance for folks to call in and participate and have some dialogue with board members who are available to attend that meeting. We can think about some questions, and the town manager and I will work on some questions to forward to you as potentials over the next couple of weeks, so look for those. US 36, the work, if you haven't had a chance to notice the ongoing work there, there's going to be a change. The lane's going to shift over the next couple of weeks, so there'll be another week of the overnight closures, and then over the next week or two, there'll be a shift in how that project works. So again, the construction that we've seen is ongoing, and then once there's a firm deadline or a firm date when the lane shift will change, we'll be sure and get the news out via an e-blast. We'll work with Alex and his staff. The streets project, the street reconstruction project, starts this week. The Hudson Harris Reservoir dam rehabilitation work also mobilizes this week. So a couple of big construction projects are getting underway starting this week. And also, I'd like to recognize a staff member, a new staff member this year, Rick Davis. He was honored to receive an award from the Colorado chapter of the American Public Works Association. He was named Inspector of the Year. So it's nice to always see that level of recognition. So congratulations to Rick. And then also the National Trails Day, I wanted to just be sure and just underline the support and highlight the effort from staff and from the members of the OSAC committee to get, but I think Patrick told me over 60 people there.
Yeah, no, it was a great
really
turnout.
well. The Hot Quest program has been around for a long time and has a great following. So it's the second or third in a series of events that will happen over the next several months. So be able to look out for the next ones over in the newsletters coming up.
Can I ask two questions of, okay. So one question is, has all the debris, regardless of whose property or whatever is behind, been removed from the creek?
I'd be glad to check on that for you.
Would you please?
Include that in the digest this week, sure.
All right, and then the other is, I want to really emphasize that the last time I talked to Mr. Magley, the air monitors were not yet installed, and he was still deciding between 2 meters or something or other. But those need to go in sooner rather than later if we're going to get a baseline. So I really want to emphasize that we get those in as quickly as possible. Thanks.
Just a few months, thank you for the reminder. That's actually on my list to help procure those, working with Mr. Magley to finalize the exact spec for the equipment that we're going to acquire. So yes, it is on the list, and it should be coming before the board soon.
Again, soon is critical.
Town Attorney?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Yeah, Town Clerk?
No, I don't have anything.
Thank you very much, all of you. The next item on the agenda is time for public comment on matters on the consent agenda or non-agenda items. If someone in the public would like to address the board, we'd ask you to come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and take 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes.
Wow.
Seeing none.
Yeah.
We got to keep that muckle guy away from you. All right, thank you. Moving on to item 6, which is presentations. And I'm not sure if Mr. Niles was in here when I announced that I was moving the Historical Commission presentation ahead of the audit during the presentations. So, Mr. Town Manager, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So the town has, over the last several months, invited candidates who are running for office to come speak to the board. And tonight we're pleased to have Sheriff Joe Pelly here, who's running for this November, and also a candidate for county surveyor, Lee, and I'm going to butcher your last name. Stidell. So Mr. Lee Stidell is here. So I appreciate you both coming, making the time here. Appreciate Phyllis for reaching out, trying to coordinate the schedules to get folks here. So Sheriff Pelly, if you'd come up and share for a few minutes, and the board has any questions.
Good evening.
Do we all get shirts like that?
We can arrange that.
After the election.
After the election.
There's an inmate underneath it.
Not that nice a shirt.
I appreciate you having me here. Again, my name is Joe Pelly. I am running for my 4th and final term this year. It's been my privilege to be the county sheriff here for 12 years, the past 3 terms. I grew up here. I grew up in Boulder County. I've been in policing in this community for 34 years. I have a master's degree, a bachelor's degree in the field. I have a list of training and certifications. I'm fully qualified to be a peace officer and a sheriff in this community, but more than that, I'm very, very proud of our organization, of our administration. I'm proud of the way we treat people. I'm proud of the way we handle our business. I'm proud of the way we have handled crime and disorder and fires and floods and jail crowding and all the issues that come our way. I'm looking forward to a final term. I also very much would like to stress my thanks and my appreciation for the relationship the Sheriff's Office has with the town of Superior. I think this contract we have to provide municipal law enforcement is really a model of efficiency and effectiveness. I actually wrote an article about it for the Carver Municipal League. It was in last year, and it got good reviews, from across the state. So basically, I'm here to say hi, express my thanks, and see if there are any questions or issues.
Trustee Gregorz.
So you've accomplished a lot in your long career. What's left for you to do in your last term? What do you look forward to before you move on?
So, 2 things. First of all, transition planning. We have a host of us, a host of the upper level folks are aging out and getting ready to move on. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for younger folks, the mid-level managers, to move up. And I want to make sure that our department and all the divisions in our department, there are about 400 employees working there in all the different divisions, that I'm leaving the Sheriff's Office in really good hands and setting someone up for success in the future. So that will be one emphasis. The other major issue that we're dealing with still on an ongoing basis is jail crowding. Too many people, not enough space. We are focused hard now on looking at some alternatives to actual hard jail bed cells that I think if we build it, they will come. I would like, the counties, Larimer County, Weld County, Adams County, Arapahoe County, everybody around us has invested heavily in alternative sentencing facilities. They're cheaper to build, they're cheaper to run. The majority of the people in the jail don't need hard beds. If we were able to do that, if we were able to build a facility like that, I could actually probably free up 120 beds in the jail the day that facility opened and reserve those for people that really need to be there. It's an expensive proposition, It requires a lot of ongoing funding to manage it, but we're at a position and a place in our county and a time in our county where we really have to look ahead and make some plans for the future. It's a problem that I'd like to help try to fix before I ride off into the sunset.
Thank you, good luck.
Trustee Scott?
So two things. One is a question of ignorance, and that is, you talked about the jail crowding, and, I often hear that one of the things that's caused crowding in prisons around the country is the issue of drugs, and with the new marijuana law, do we expect people to be arrested less or arrested more? And what will that do for jail crowding? That was my question of ignorance, and I've got another question for you.
Well, it's not an ignorant question at all. It's a very complex question. For the last decade or more, nobody has been in our jail for smoking marijuana.
Oh, okay.
But there are a lot of people in our jail because they have substance abuse problems, and they commit crimes in order to support their habits or their issues. And so the complexity of all this is not that we're not going to be arresting people for marijuana possession, but what does the whole legalization thing do in regards to substance abuse and the existence of more or less substance abuse and that kind of thing? And I don't think anybody knows.
And you would know probably better than anyone in the room, so has the average price of drugs of the legal sort now gone up or down compared to what it was before the law passed? So does that lead to more need for, stealing to support or less?
Well, the retail market is heavily taxed.
Yes.
It's a little more expensive, and I think a lot of people are still using the black market. So, and that price has remained relatively stable.
Okay. So here's my real election-oriented question. That is, so one of the things, I admire what the organization or the contract that we have as well, and it just stuns me that people are willing to pay 2 and 3 times more per capita for the same or worse service, and this is just a model. I totally agree. One of the things that you've been really good about is keeping statistics, and I've really appreciated the numerics and metrics that you've provided us. I guess my question is, what's the numeric or the metric that you're most proud of that you've accomplished in what you've done, and what's the one that you still think you need to work on more?
For the town of Superior or
Yeah.
countywide? Or
I'll take either.
I don't have metrics in my head tonight.
No, I don't mean the number. I don't mean the number, but I mean, you've watched them grow or fall or improve or get worse, and that's all I'm talking about.
I think the thing, I guess there are some things I'm very proud of. We answer, as a department, we answer about 160,000 calls for service annually. We contact over 100,000 people. We arrest and book in through our jail approximately 10,000 people. And the statistics on officer-involved complaints and use of force are so minimal, they hardly touch the graph. I'm also proud of I came from a law enforcement background, and I worked in the police department for 20 years, and I can tell you the thing about the sheriff's office that's different that I'm proud of is we have a service orientation. Not only do we do law enforcement, we do wildland fire suppression, we do search and rescue, we do emergency management. So what I find is I get people who come with a heart for public service and a heart for public safety rather than just law enforcement. And I stress that we're a public safety agency, not a law enforcement agency all the time. I think it's the philosophy that I'm the proudest of. We're a character-first organization. We pride ourselves on our ethics and our integrity, and we hold people accountable when that trust is broken. And I'm proud of that.
Got to come up with a numeric for that, okay?
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? Trustee Hanson?
I don't know if you're prepared to answer this tonight, but are you planning on participating in our Chili Fest this year? And if not, this is an open invitation.
I did participate as a judge several years ago, and it hurt. It took some Pepsi Complete to, but I'd be pleased to, yeah.
Any questions from the public?
Thank you for all you do.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for the great relationship and support you're giving us. I too agree that it's a model, and your deputies have done a wonderful job for us, and couldn't ask for better.
And Jim Chamberlain, great.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
So, next, our candidate for county surveyor. Congratulations on your front page article today, did you?
Well, I was as shocked as everyone. Usually when surveying makes the news, it's for a bad reason. So, it was good. Anyway, my name is Lee Stadell. I'm a candidate for the Democratic nomination for county surveyor. And I was, last fall, the current county surveyor twisted my arm to run. He said, we need somebody good in there. He trusts me and wanted me to do it. The current county surveyor, Jason Emery, is term limited. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the county surveyor position, in my opinion. But because surveyors tend to get better as they get older, you see more stuff, you realize how wrong you had it when you were just starting out. So it's, other counties in Colorado have done away with the term limit. Grant County is one example on the other side of the divide. Anyway, I graduated from college in 1980 with a geology degree. My wife, Megan, and I have been married for 33 years. We have 3 daughters. We've lived in Boulder County since 1983. I started surveying in 1983 in Boulder County. First I took a job at School of Mines, and then at a company in Boulder. In 1992, 22 years ago, I founded my business, Flagstaff Surveying. We operate out of the Table Mesa Shopping Center in South Boulder. You might have seen some of our name on some plats that come through Superior. Currently, we're working on Calamonte. So, land, after family and friends, is one of the biggest investments in terms of time and effort in people's lives. So, it's really important for the county surveyor to keep that in mind. Land issues can be stressful and hard to understand. All surveyors, good surveyors, try to counsel landowners about how to best solve land problems before they end up in court. When land surveying is needed, it's my job to prepare a map that, when finished, solves the problem or satisfies the government entity or provides information of various needs so the people who own the land can upgrade their living situation. Good maps can and should solve current and potential problems. I want to talk a little bit about the floods and the fire, which started near Wall Street a few years ago. I just came down James Canyon the other day, and I hadn't been there. I was looking at doing a quote for a client of mine. It's amazing. Back in '79, when I was a geology student, we stayed at Cowwood Ranch for 6 weeks in the summer. James Creek is a small little creek. Not anymore. It's just massive destruction. I don't know if you've been up there, but it's amazing. And I was also up in Lyons. The river has completely changed course in a lot of areas. It's crazy. So what we've been doing, surveyors have been really scrambling to keep up with the work required to help get people back into their homes. FEMA requires elevation certificates if you're going to rebuild in a flood zone. A lot of surveyors in Boulder County have been just completely overwhelmed with that kind of work. Many of the survey monuments that are vital to the rebuilding process were lost, along with parts of the road, during this flooding. It will take years to reestablish the survey control points and benchmarks. You know, one of the other interesting things about the surveyor position is it's the only elected position in which a professional license is required. I've been licensed since 1989. It's a 6-year process after your degree. and then 2 8-hour tests to get licensed. Although the county surveyor position is mainly an administrative position, I will use the office to push the following agenda. Number 1, I will motivate other surveyors to do more than just the minimum as required by the law. It's always good to do just a little bit more, always. So if there's a monument that's missing, set it. If there's a monument that's in the road and it doesn't have a range box, put the range box there. It's not that hard. You're digging it up anyway. We've been talking about this for years. Jason, the current land surveyor, county surveyor, Bill Stengel, the former county surveyor. And so we've been doing that for years. I want to talk to the commissioners about the current policy where the low bid gets the survey work. Land is really important. We don't want the low bid to do all the work all the time. It just doesn't make any sense, especially if somebody's a couple $100s more and they have a better knowledge of the area. I will continue to hold regular meetings with other Boulder County surveyors to educate and invigorate the profession. And I will continue the process started by Bill Stengel and Jason Emery of getting the old historic surveys into the public record. Colorado has only had a recordation law since 1987. That was when we were required.
What law?
It's a recordation law. If you do a survey, you're required to file a map with Boulder County. We've only had it in Colorado since 1987. So other states, like for example New Jersey, 1700, 1680, they've had it. So these old maps are really important to get into the public record. So whenever I find an old map that's before 1987, I roll it up, I put historic on it, and I put it in a pile, and then eventually I'll give them to Jason or to the land use department to get them into the public record. It's important. And then I touched on this. I'll continue to upgrade the survey monuments of all types so that surveyors in the future will have the ability to prepare maps that solve problems and do not create problems. I think I can make a difference for the people of Boulder County. It's a part-time job. You know, I can't do everything. I can just do my part. So I think experience is really one of the most important things in the county surveyor position. The main reason for it is the land use department in Boulder, they get maps that are ready to be recorded or where they think they're ready to be recorded, and they don't have anybody really qualified to assess if they're following state law. So they ship them off to the county surveyor to review them. So that's one of the main things they do, the county surveyor does. Anyway, please consider placing your trust in me and voting for me. I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
Any questions from the board?
I just have one. Did you say whether or not you have competition in this election?
I do, and it's one of only 2 races where there's competition.
Coroner and you.
The coroner and the surveyor.
What does that mean?
Is it in the primaries?
It's in the primary.
Okay.
I don't think the Republicans are going to field a candidate. Okay. I don't know why, but my competition, Sam Knight, is a surveyor that I respect a lot.
I'm not going to make you promote him here. I just
He's a friend of mine, and so either one of us will do a fine job.
But you're here today.
Yeah, that's what counts.
You did a little bit more.
I understand, I think that George Washington did some surveying in his career to start, so just how high are your aspirations?
This is the first time I've run for public office.
Okay.
I'm getting better at it, but I think the key thing for me is that if I can, regardless of what happens, if I just keep doing what I've been doing for 31 years in Boulder County surveying, and just trying to do just a little bit more every single map, 30,000 surveys I've been involved with, 15,000 in my own company, we can make it better. We can prevent. Biggest thing I can do is try to get people to stop fighting each other. over dumb stuff. I do that all the time. I feel like a land counselor.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yes. That's good. You did it, Betsy. Next, we have Chamber of Commerce, who's been mentioned affectionately earlier tonight.
Thank you to the board and to town staff. I'm Heather Craycraft, the Executive Director of the Superior Chamber of Commerce, and very much appreciate your comments on our annual event. I have 3 items that hopefully won't take too long for this evening's update. Very much in the discussion, obviously, of all these new businesses coming into town, and obviously as the chamber executive, we are the ones who are trying to be that liaison with the business owner and your town staff, really, honestly. There are 2 new businesses opening probably in the latter half of this month, and I am working with them very quickly and diligently to set up some festivities around their openings, as well as staff together. So those will definitely be in your hands as soon as we know about them. It would be great play, the new kids gym that's located just across, actually next door to Kumon. So kind of on the southern part of the marketplace property. And then the other place will be a new boutique in women's clothing and house furnishing called The Niche. So met with them last week, and they're very excited about opening their new business. So I just wanted to let you know we are all, between your town staff and the chamber, working diligently to try to help them get the word
Where will
out.
the niche be?
They're taking over the location formerly known as Veld Camps, for any of us who have been around for a while, directly across from TJ Maxx. So on the western half of the building that starts with IHOP, if that helps as well. So very excited to welcome them into our community. So the annual dinner was touched on a little bit, and I would love to share the news of our community awards that were awarded this past Tuesday, June 3rd. And it is our honor to award 6 awards each year on behalf of the community, honestly. Our Educator of the Year award was presented by Stauffer Team Real Estate and was awarded to Mr. Mark Call from El Dorado K-8 School. For anyone that has children in the neighborhood and have attended that school, his choir and musical and the many, many things he does in the music department is fantastic. So there were many people in the room that even knew him through their years of having children in the school system. And his whole family got to join him, so it was fun to have him in the room. The Independent Business of the Year, presented by Daily Camera, was awarded to Guardian Storage. Again, a participant you hear us talk about many times is their support and many efforts, both on most recently the Shred and Electronics Day, all the way to hosting the stage for Chili Fest. The Large Business of the Year, presented by Superior Liquor, was Stauffer Team Real Estate. The owners of Stauffer Team Real Estate actually live in Rock Creek and really have built a business that takes care of, I would say, almost all of Boulder County, and are very excited to have moved their location to Main Street in Louisville and have a team of close to 20 people under them in their business over the few years we've gotten to work with them. So we were proud to present them the Large Business of the Year. The Service Group of the Year, presented by Chick-fil-A at Flatiron, is Sister Carmen Community Center, a group that obviously we count on a day-to-day basis to service everyone in Boulder County. Superior Achiever Award, which was presented by the town of Superior, was presented to Pete Messner, who is not necessarily a resident in the community, but obviously is one of the owners of Superior Liquor and really has done his due diligence in both making sure the retail world is vibrant and really answering a lot of our questions when it comes to business matters. And the last award we awarded was the Volunteer of the Year, presented by Key Equipment Finance, and that was awarded to Daryl McCool, who many of you know has really done a lot in many capacities, both on the recycling committee. I think she's done OSAC, she's helped design some logos, she's got great graphic design capabilities, and has done a lot for the chamber and many business owners. So we were excited to award her that award. And lastly, that evening we were very excited to launch a new program that, if I may share these with the town clerk to pass them on. A new campaign that the chamber is championing called Caught Doing Good. It is a simple campaign, but basically about capturing a moment and submitting your entry. We are welcoming anyone in the community to catch someone doing good with a quick photo and submit it to either our Facebook page or our email in an effort to really give the chamber a chance to recognize all the good that our community does. So I wanted to make sure we got that word out, and we will do so continually, but very excited about the program.
Great idea.
Thank you very much. Next, again, as I said earlier, this is a slight switch in order, but we have an award, Historical Commission Award presentation. So I see the chairman of the Historical Commission stepping up.
You guys want to say first?
Oh, no, I don't want to steal your thunder.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Larry Dorsey, Chair of the Superior Historical Commission, and it's a pleasure to be here this evening to present to the town an award given by an organization in Boulder comprised of a number of different organizations throughout Boulder County. It's called the Boulder Historic Roundtable. And every year, the Boulder Historic Roundtable recognizes individuals and groups who do something significant in the area of historical preservation. At the Chautauqua Community House on May 19th, the awards were presented, and the Historical Commission nominated the town of Superior for the foundation, for the Founders Park renovation. As you well know, it's filled with all sorts of historical references and allusions and eventually signs and so on. And so we felt it was appropriate that the town be recognized for this. Patrick Hammer was at the award ceremony and accepted it then, and I bring it to you this evening so it become part of the permanent collection of the town and hopefully place it some prominent place anyway. We in the Historical Commission too are really pleased to be able to work with the Parks Committee as well, Parks and Open Space and Trails. I can't get all the right words and letters in that, but I apologize to Jim for that. And so we think this is just really a terrific accomplishment to have the commissions working together and then the town accomplishing this. And we were able to have Patrick there because he was the ramrod on the job, and I thought he did a great job. So here it is.
All right, if you wouldn't mind, let me get a picture.
You want to have that within the mayor?
I'll give it to you. Yeah, thank you for that.
know what they want.
Thank you again. Thank you, everybody. It's no privilege.
It's very bright now, I'm feeling a little...
Next, this is what we've all been waiting for. This is the presentation of the 2013 audit. Is there an introduction to this?
I'll get started. So Austin Bump is here, the town's audit firm, Swan Horse and Company. He'll review the town's annual financial report for 2013 and also present the annual audit report.
Thank you. And thanks for having me here. Really, kind of like to start because, this is the product of the audit process. But I'd like to think of you having me here to this meeting being the conclusion. And the good news is that, you guys have seen me last year, and this is the chance to talk about the positive things. And one point that I always like to mention, and I think I brought this up last year, is in this document, which we call this Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, they've included the GFOA certificate from the prior year. So 2012, they filed a calculated GFOA, which is kind of a governing body that sort of reviews these reports, and they received the award. And I mentioned at this meeting last year that this checklist is 70 pages. And hits a lot of different things that go into it, and I always like to point out that it's significant and it takes a lot of hard work. This is not my product. This is from certainly Paul and Jeff. The one piece in here is really a 2-page opinion, and as you can remember, our responsibility is to express an opinion on whether or not the financial statements are free from material misstatement. We use the term unmodified opinion. That means that we do not identify anything that would have jeopardized that opinion. The term used to be unqualified, and then obviously people need jobs and they have to kind of update accounting standards everywhere. So that means a clean opinion. It means that the financial statements are materially correct. The thing that I wanted to just touch on was what we call the management letter, and I think Jeff has told me that you guys got a copy of it. It's about a 2-page recap of the audit process and the procedures. The first page really just kind of summarized what I just said, is we designed certain procedures to figure out whether or not we can express that unmodified opinion, or if there's any other opinion that we need to kind of look at. There's 2 things that I want to talk about in here that I think are significant. One, it's on the top of the second page, in case you had it in front of you. The town did adopt a new accounting standard this year, and I know that it always kind of sounds daunting because this stuff gets real technical. Really, what it was is kind of some presentational changes. It's just terminology that appeared on a couple of these front statements. It didn't have the effect with the town that it would have on kind of other governments involved in a lot of different type activities. So when you read through that and you say, oh, we have this new accounting standard, what is this? It really is just a terminology change, nothing more than that. The second piece, which is also on the second page, we are required to disclose if there were any adjustments, audit adjustments, that we discovered during the audit process. And this is direct testament to, finance department, that we did not have any material audit adjustments to the accounting records. So that means that what you're receiving, what you're seeing financially, is accurate. And it didn't take us coming in at year end to, sort of confirm that. And I think that's great, and that really is a big deal. The rest of this letter is really just talking about how the audit process works, and how we kind of conclude, and really just boilerplate language. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, if there's anything more specific, I'm sure Paul and Jeff could help with any.
I just had just a quick question. Do you ever have times when it is modified?
Yeah.
And what's the percentage between unmodified and modified?
Less than 5%, really.
Okay.
And it would be for very unusual things, unusual circumstances. Really, the most common is that, information wasn't available, or, something was not provided, or we couldn't rely on something. And that could be, the town's relying on something externally, and we couldn't verify it, or something like that. So that's kind of it's a rare case.
Okay. Not that we don't trust them, we do trust them, but I'm just asking.
It really, it takes a lot to kind of get into the modified opinion range.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Anything else? Any other questions?
So we're an ongoing concern, are we?
No issues with that at all. You guys got good people in place, and I think, the reminder is that, although, we've been doing the audit for a while, is that you get a fresh set of eyes on everything. We have constant rotation, we have, new people looking at it. I always kind of say, and certainly Jeff has heard this 100 times, that you get a better audit with somebody that's familiar with your controls and how you do things than you do having to teach an auditor what you do and having to kind of train them. And I think you get a much better audit, really.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our staff. So, we're now ready to move on to item 7, I guess, which is our consent agenda, which consists of approval of the minutes of the May 27, 2014 Board of Trustees meeting, acceptance of the meeting notes for the Historical Commission, the Open Space Advisory Committee, and the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee. And third, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Road Safe Traffic Systems for the 2014 epoxy striping project. Do I have a motion? Trustee Gugos, second trustee Skumats. Do we need to take a roll because of the approval of the contract?
Yes.
Yes.
Cirilli?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Skumats?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Okay, so that being done, the consent agenda has been passed. Move on to item 8. Let me find that here. Okay, would you like to introduce this?
Sure, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this item is the adoption of a resolution making appointments to some vacancies that we currently have on the Open Space Committee, Parks Rec Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee, and the Historical Commission. As highlighted in the cover memo, Section 12, 1240 of the code addresses how membership is handled for the town's advisory committees. One of the items that comes to the board systematically each June as a result of the ordinance that was revised in 2012 is the consideration of appointments and reappointments. This evening there are several residents who are up for reappointment. These include Jill Kenny of OSAC. This would be for her first full term through 2017. And then for Parks Rec and Open Space Advisory Committee, the second term through 2017 for both Steve Smith and for Ron Summer. And then for the Historical Commission, reappointment for Karen Wall-Ligorski and Bob Morgan. In terms of process, last year the board didn't require going through a formal ballot process to determine these, but it's up to you on how you'd like to proceed.
Trustee Pennington.
First, I want to ask a question. I wish I would have caught this before the agenda was approved. I think it's a little confusing because 8 says adoption of resolutions making appointments to the Planning Commission, OSAC, POSTAC, RCAC, and Historical Commission. Can we, in retrospect, take out the words Planning Commission and RCAC, since those are not being made, so that people doing a quick view of the agenda aren't confused?
Yes.
I think that would be a great thing to do.
And then the second thing is, we do have, I think, some re-upping being required for Planning Commission, and when is that going to come forth?
That would be for next month.
Okay.
Next meeting, I believe.
Next meeting.
Next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
23rd.
So, any other comments or?
So we're adopting a resolution only for
3 resolutions.
3 of them?
Yep, 3 resolutions.
Okay,
3 committees, yes.
3 committees.
I'll weigh in. I'm fine doing this by acclamation rather than doing ballots.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that would be quite appropriate. So,
Can I make a motion?
yes, you may.
I'd like to make a motion to Town Superior Resolution Number R-30, resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior reappointing members of the Superior Historical Commission, Robert Morgan and Karen Wall-Ligorski.
Seconded by trustee Kukoris. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? That's unanimous.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-31, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, making an appointment to the Open Space Advisory Committee for Ms. Jill Kinney.
Second by trustee Kukoris. Any discussion? Not seeing any, let's take a vote. All in favor? That's unanimous.
I'd like to make a motion to the Town of Superior Resolution Number R-32, Series 2014, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, making reappointments to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and Trails Advisory Committee for Steve Smith and Ron Summer.
Seconded by trustee Kukoris. Any discussion? If not, seeing none, call a vote. All in favor? Once again, unanimous. Congratulations to all of those who have been reappointed.
And thanks for being willing to serve
Yes,
yet
thank
again.
you. That is,
Yeah, that's the main thing.
volunteering in this town keeps this town going, and it's much
If I can
appreciated.
just add on to that, so as an additional thank you for the folks that are re-upping, the folks that are going to be stepping down, we're going to recognize them next month with
Okay, great.
proclamations, expressing our appreciation for their service over their terms. For a few folks, it's many years.
Many years, right.
Many years. They predate the existence of the term.
Did you say that'll be the next meeting? or-
It'll be next month.
Next month.
I referred earlier to the question of next month. I was thinking of proclamations. So this would be the proclamations for those outgoings.
And then, Martin, a question, are we having the volunteer appreciation dinner again this year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess we are moving on to item 9. This probably will take a little bit longer. This is discussion of draft survey for indoor facilities community survey. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, ProStack has been working over the last year with staff and a consulting team to develop recommendations for the town board on what community-wide support looks like for an indoor community space, and what that space might look like. So following board direction during the second meeting in April, it was April 28th meeting, the committee was tasked with establishing a working group of members, working with Parks, Rec, Open Space and Trails, Parks, Rec, and Open Space Department head, Patrick Hammer, and a working group of members there, and a consultant team to finalize a draft survey instrument. So I'd like to thank all the members of the group for the time and energy that they put into assembling this, and now go over that with you tonight. So I'd like to start by introducing Director Patrick Hammer to kick off the presentation with a recap of what the task is and the timeline, and then members of the project team are here, and also the consultant team are here.
And I'm glad you guys made it, because we're about a half an hour ahead of schedule, so it's good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening, Patrick Hammer, town staff. With me tonight is Jim Payne with ProStack, Chris Cares from RRC Associates, and Chris Strapinski from Greenplay. Going back to 2013, the members of ProStack prioritized the need to conduct a feasibility study of some sort to begin to determine the community's desires for indoor space, potential indoor space to be built somewhere in town, or have space available for things like meetings, programs, get-togethers, scout meetings, things of that nature. So going back to 2013, ProStack Committee with the consultant team hosted a number of community engagement meetings. We also worked with a software which became known as EngageSuperior.com, which was an online forum to allow people to communicate on elements of the meeting. After several of those meetings, ProStack was given direction by the board around this time last year, June 24th of last year, to go ahead with a survey process to supplement just another tool to go out to the community to really help begin to kind of gauge the community's desires on potential indoor space. Jumping ahead to this year, ProStack staff worked with the consultant team from Greenplay and Chris Cares from RC Associates to really start to review draft survey types, draft survey questions, and begin to formulate what you guys will see here this evening. Just to touch briefly on timeline, a little bit of an accelerated timeline. ProStack and the consultants are here tonight to go over draft questions. The hope would be over the next couple of weeks to continue to take board feedback on what these survey questions would look like, with the potential goal of going out somewhere around June 23rd, end of June, to begin to advertise to the community through a postcard and through town media that this survey will be available to the public. Give citizens a bit of 10 days plus to really work through the survey. ProStack with the consultant team begin to analyze the results and feedback during the month of July, and during August begin to formulate some kind of decision potentially to bring back to the board with the results of the survey. So With that being said, I'd like to introduce Jim Payne from ProStack, who's going to kind of touch a little bit on the working group and the process that the committee went through with Chris Cares and RC Associates and Greenplay to come up with questions for tonight's survey.
Good evening, Jim Payne, ProStack member, and I'd volunteered within the committee to head a working group or project team, we called it, to try to keep this moving between meetings so we weren't locked into a monthly meeting schedule, which wouldn't have gotten this done in time. So the group was a subset of some ProStack members, and also 2 trustees participated on that, Trustee Hanson, who's also the ProStack liaison, and Trustee Pennington. And we have worked with staff and the consultant to move this along and get as much input from the board as possible. So it's a fairly simple process. We've been through a few iterations to get it close to where we thought it should be, and we've reached out to everybody on the board and have had good feedback from everyone on the board, with the exception of the mayor himself, who's unfortunately away. We did get good feedback from Trustee Williams before she left for vacation. So we have a lot of input. ProStack reviewed it in its last meeting pretty intensively, and we had a really good discussion and a lot of good feedback there. And we've got a lot of expertise in the committee that's relevant to the survey. And so about a week ago, it went up online, which is really the way you need to look at it, because that's the way the survey will be administered. And you've all seen that, and we appreciate the feedback. So that's the process. I'm going to ask Chris Cares, the consultant on the survey, to walk you through the mechanics, what we're doing as far as distributing the survey. There are a few questions that he'll raise with you concerning the mechanics and the distribution of the survey that we'd like board direction on. And then I'll come back and talk about the actual questions themselves and where we are on those, and where, again, there's some that we would specifically request board direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, Jim, and appreciate the opportunity to share with you where we are in this process. And initially, what I'd like to do is mention a few of the mechanical aspects of the survey as we propose to conduct it. I'll say that when we start a project like this, we really don't have a pure template for it. We draw on our experience, but generally these kinds of programs are customized to the community. And so we came in and tried to listen at the ProStack level and try to establish our understanding of some of the objectives for the survey in the first place, and also understand what you've done in the past in the way of survey work. Now, out of that came a recommendation from us, but with, I think, concurrence, that in this community, the best single way to conduct this kind of a survey would be using email and digital responses. And what we've elected to recommend is that we would distribute postcards inviting the community to participate in the survey. All addresses, known addresses in the community would receive a copy of the survey. There'd be an identified website on the postcard, and we would indicate that we'd like a response within 10 days of the receipt of the postcard. So conveying a sense of urgency to communicating. At the same time, I think we had recommended that depending upon response rate from that initial mailing, we have the potential to come back and do a second postcard mailing along the same lines. So to reinforce the idea of this being available. Now, one of the questions we wanted to pose to you tonight, in addition to that methodology, are you comfortable with the way we're approaching it, is the idea that we might offer 2 passwords per postcard to complete the survey. So we're recommending that the survey invitation be password protected, and the question is, do we provide 1 or 2 passwords per household? And I'll say the thinking, if you provide 2, is that there may be 2 adults in the household, and often, particularly with parks, recreation, and especially indoor space use, there may be differences in how the members of the household respond. So this is one way to give both members of the household and all adult members of the community an opportunity to be heard. So, can I pose that as a question?
Yes.
And we can continue on?
Are you asking that as a question? We're supposed to respond then?
Yes.
So I'm going to expand your question. So one of the things, I can hear from the people who really care a lot every time they come down here. I would really like statistical responses, and we won't get that with the design you've proposed, because you're not doing, a sample of community households with a follow-up and all that sort of thing, a follow-up that really gets that response. We're going to hear from the people who come down and who want to advocate for particular things. I'm really interested in a more unbiased response, and this design won't get it to us. So that's a significant problem I have. I don't care if you allow 1 or 2 of the household to do it. I'd like it to be only, though, from a subsample that's closely followed up with phone calls or something like that, not a simple two postcard approach citywide. If we want citywide stuff, that can be virtually free by putting it in the newsletter. And I would suggest instead that we spend the money to do a subset of houses, a statistically, random group of houses in the community, follow those up with a phone call for those who don't respond, and that we get this sort of broad-based thing by advertising in the newsletter, letting whoever wants fill it out, which is what you get when you send it out to everybody. And that one, you don't have to analyze it. You can just run it out of SurveyMonkey or whatever, and I'll just look at it that way. That's fine. But the statistical one, that's the one I want to see, and I don't see that from this design.
Lisa, can you accomplish that by combining the 2?
I'm saying do both. I just said do both.
Yeah, okay.
But you have to have them go to separate websites.
Right.
Same survey, separate websites.
But you're saying take a small subset of the entire population and call them, follow up on them?
Yeah.
With using okay.
You can send a postcard to them first, but the follow-up needs to be by phone or something like that. So.
I actually don't see any value to doing them both, because to the extent that there is a disagreement,
it's free to do the other.
You have to rely on the statistically accurate sample. Otherwise, motivated populations drive the response. What happens behind this is that the swimming club emails all their members, answer the survey, so you get a disproportionate number of swimmers. Or the baseball group emails their members, and you get a disproportionate number of baseball players. It's driving our decisions. And so frankly, I've got a lot of background in doing these. Lisa's got a lot of background in doing these. The second way of doing it is good anecdotally, maybe whatever, but the only one you can rely on is the one that uses statistically accurate methodology. But I do care how many responses you allow per household, because to the extent you've got one adult in that household that's given 2 passwords, that person can then take it twice. And I don't wish to introduce that bias into the survey, so therefore I believe one of the alternatives is simply to allow 1 household response. So whoever is responding understands they're responding for the household.
Again.
As long as I think there probably is a fair number of single-parent households, so yeah, single-person households.
There are a lot of...
Single-person households.
Yeah, right.
Thanks, good point.
So I'll have to disagree with my colleagues here. I do believe that if there's 2 adults in a household, they have every right to have a difference of opinion or to have the same opinion, but they should be given that opportunity to answer for themselves.
I don't disagree with you, Elia, in a two-parent household, but in a one-parent household, there can only be one response. In a one-adult
right.
household, there can only be one response.
So is there a way for the survey to ensure that, in other words, if one individual has turned in their survey, they can't redo it again and pretend to be a fictitious spouse that doesn't exist? Is there a way to monitor that?
Well, we typically would know the two passwords that went to a household. We typically would check to see if we got identical responses across the board from both respondents in a household.
Okay.
Frankly, I think we do a lot of back-checking on the surveys we do, and I think the amount of the kind of abuse that's being talked about is relatively uncommon in these kinds of surveys. And I won't say that it's, the methodology is perfect, but I do think that abuse is not typically found, and we check very carefully. We can follow the suggested approach. A sample is an alternative way to do it. I think there are reasons why, at least in the discussions we had earlier, why you might consider reaching out to the entire community rather than to a sample. There's public relations and goodwill in letting the entire community know that they have the opportunity to participate.
The other comment I'd like to make, too, is that motivated populations do push the envelope. That's what happens in elections. The motivated population votes, and the apathetic one gets to live with the results. That's what kind of how it works.
Well, but in trying to build community, to the extent there's not a direct correlation between the motivated population and the users of the amenity, you're going to get this disconnect. So I'm here to tell you, I can only validate what Lisa says, is you've got to do a statistically accurate sample. If you want the other population to be measured, do it the second way, and you can run the correlations between those populations. But otherwise, you've got, in other words, because 20 motivated residents of this town say we need amenity aid, that doesn't mean we, who have to represent the whole community, should be unduly influenced to put in amenity aid.
I totally understand that, but it's on the residents themselves to participate or not participate. If you don't participate, you lose your right. That's how it is in every election. You stay home, then you lose it.
We're paying to have a representative survey done, so I'm just saying we should do it the way we know produces representative data.
Yeah, I disagree. I think
I couldn't feel more strongly about this, and we can get like I said, we can get the townwide, thing for virtually free by advertising the newsletter. We don't have to pay for a postcard or anything. And then anybody who wants to can participate. Or they can do postcards, I don't care, but the only survey I'll pay any attention to is when I think is done in a statistically valid way. This one will not, the one you're describing, I will not use it, and I will strongly encourage the other board members not to use it. So, sorry, I feel really strongly about this. I want to hear from the silent majority. I hear from the same people over and over again.
How can you make the silent majority do it?
You don't need a survey to hear what I've been hearing over and over again. I need a survey to hear the new thing.
The silent majority may not show up at meetings.
But they'll show up in a survey.
But they will not do a survey. They cannot make that presumption. And if they don't, there are ways to augment the statistically accurate sample to randomly pick additional participants to create a random sample.
And that's exactly what I described, yeah.
Not to move away from randomness.
But
I think
this is not going to work.
It's my belief that you can achieve statistical validity by inviting the entire population to participate. What you do is you try to encourage broad participation. And I think typically in this kind of a survey, you end up hearing from the people that you don't typically hear from. I'm happy to debate it, but I'm also happy to take your direction. I think there's multiple ways you can approach a survey in a study like this, and there are several legitimate approaches. Clearly, you've expressed an opinion that said if you don't do it this way, I won't believe it.
I'm sorry, I just won't.
Okay.
Because because exactly what Sandy described is exactly what's happened over and over again. I'm not, it's absolutely happened here. I need it to be a statistically valid survey. I need it to be random, follow-up, et cetera, so.
What size sample would you say is reasonable?
Well,
I'd
that's the statistics, based
I'd like at least
however many
270.
adult
270
participants.
households.
386 would be great, but I think that if we had 5% sample, if we only got 5% response, we'd need 7,600 homes. I don't think we have many more than 7,600 homes, so I don't think we can get much more than 270 randomly, but that's my own opinion.
We have 4,600 properties in this town, and a statistical sampling of that is what, Chris?
Well, typically, we look for a sample of in excess of 400.
Right.
That's a number that
Right.
we often target. I would be surprised if you used the method I described, if you wouldn't have well in excess of 400.
Oh, I believe we would too, but not the right 400.
But
What does that mean at the right 400, though? I don't agree with that at all.
400.
it's a random 400. You
No,
really,
I agree with that, Ely, but I think we should, I like the idea of sending all postcards out to every household, but I do agree that we have to do that randomness. I
Right.
like that.
Well, let me suggest, based on what I'm hearing, that the alternative approach would be to do a random sample within the entire community, create an address where they can complete the survey, and remind them via phone calls or other methods to try to boost the sample from that randomly selected group.
And then probably
Then
weight it,
open
et
up-
cetera, to the census.
Then open up the survey opportunity to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
To a different address,
Right.
to a different web address, yes,
No.
for the survey.
Well, I think if you do what I'm describing, you just open it up, period, and you'll get what you get. But the point is, you're concentrating your statistical analysis on the sample, and you're inviting the rest of the community.
So you're just identifying that subsample within all the respondents.
That's right.
It seems like a harder way to do it, but you can do what you want.
and the households, if it's the board perspective, that I am really troubled by single head of households getting 2 passwords.
I can see that.
Because, so I would definitely control for that. But if in fact they do, then only one of those, let's say that single head of household is the randomly selected sample, only one of those passwords can apply to that random sample, because I'm understanding that they have unique addresses. So if I'm the single head of household and I'm part of the random sample and I get 2 passwords, I don't have a double impact on this sample. I only have a single impact because only one is in the random sample. So Chris, what's the answer to that?
Well, I think you sample based on households, and you provide 1 password.
That's how I believe it should work.
If our sampling unit, I think our sampling unit should be household. That seems simpler. Sandy raised a really good point.
Okay. So I think that's a good direction.
Is that the direction?
Quick question, though, where do we stand budget-wise this is another step into that?
It's
This is a
actually
variation
cheaper.
on what we were talking about. So I think
Yeah.
the implications of this would not change the budget that we,
Just to pipe in, I'm not unhappy with what I'm saying here, so.
Except for the follow-up, because I
But
don't
that's, I
think...
mean, the follow-up, the phone
The
calls.
follow-up's really important, and I don't think, and I wouldn't want to see it just be a second postcard. I don't think that's enough.
well, what
It
I
needs to be phone.
is phone call reminders, and it'll take
Yeah.
multiple reminders, but I think typically what we would do is remind and reinforce the idea, we want you to complete the survey. We're not necessarily doing the survey via the phone. If we have to do it by phone, we'll do some by phone.
And I think it's important if you've got them on the phone and they want to do it then, to be willing to do that.
We can-
I also think that your postcard needs to give a toll-free number to call if people don't want to do it online.
You also then will have to tell people you're going to be calling and tell them from what number, because if my caller ID tells me whether I'm answering the phone or not. Chances are, if I don't know your number, I'm not answering it,
Me too. I agree.
so.
I think we can do that.
Chris, is your company comfortable with this random sampling, or the company you're going to use for these services?
Yeah, we
Okay.
do this all the time. I mean, there are different approaches, I think, but we're comfortable.
I have a ulterior interest in here in seeing whether the results deviate.
I think it'll be interesting.
So if we can do that.
Just a few other mechanical questions or things that I wanted to highlight. One is that we have taken out personal identifying information, and specifically we had taken out household income in the draft survey after some back and forth discussions. I think that if you're going to do a smaller sample and we're going to try to reinforce it with the phone calling, I'd probably recommend putting the income question back in, because I think that there are some financial aspects to this where knowing income would be helpful.
I think you should put in as much as you need in order to weight back to census. And if income's a key one, then I guess I would suggest doing that.
And on the income question, the way to control for that is simply to allow a non-response.
Yeah. Which we would do. Another suggestion that we made for consideration was the idea of offering an incentive to participate in the survey.
Chris,
Yes.
before you go to that, could we just ask the related question about individual versus household?
You just did.
Yes, so
Didn't we already do that?
an interloper has spoken, and we need to have him introduce himself.
Going to suggest that the other question that related to the one about sending 2 links or 1 link is throughout the survey, there are questions that ask people to answer for themselves and/or for their household, different questions. So we just wanted to get your feeling on that. Some of you and some others thought that was confusing. So
I think Chris
Second
answered
question.
that by saying household, but was I confused?
You can still, as a household, ask about you individually or the household, but I think there are way too many questions in here anyway, so I have a question before we get even to those things.
To answer your question, Jim, though, I am a strong supporter of saying household. An individual, let's say I am a single woman living in an apartment and it says your household, it by definition means me. If it says you or your household, and we only give one discrete password, you're going to be forced, and there's no material difference between saying your household, because the answerer can always answer how they see fit in most representatives. So I'm all in favor of just simplifying the language to household.
I agree with that. It's whatever my wife wants.
Whatever that one?
His wife.
Okay.
Let her take the survey.
We'll do it that way. I think there are also, there is at least one instance in the survey where we were asking, we were asking about you as an individual and then about other households. And so, the community as a whole as opposed to your household, and I'm assuming that may come up later in the discussion, but that's a different discussion than what we're having now.
I know the question you're referring to, and I'm fine with that, because I get to say what's good for my household. And then the question said, for the community at large, what do you think? So you're allowing them to put their household here and say the community at large. And to me, there's no confusion with that one.
Okay, thank you. And then the question I started to raise was about an incentive for participating. And again, I think if we're focusing our attention on a smaller random sample and trying to reinforce participation, I'm not sure you need an incentive, but I'll leave it up to you to give us some input. We do it both ways in different communities.
I don't think the literature is all that clear on it, because some say that people want to do it out of good and they feel insulted if you give them a small prize. Others feel that a small prize gets people to do it. I think the literature is really split, so I'm split as well. And if you do give a prize, I'd encourage it to be a local business that you encourage them with. But I don't think there's evidence of bias or any of the rest of that from it.
My concern is anonymity, and I'll just relate my own concerns. It's very important to me that this all be anonymous and not be able to be tracked back to me. So when you require me to give my address, locates, and all that kind of stuff to get my prize, the anonymity thing goes out the window.
yeah.
So I prefer no prize, so all respondents have complete assurances of anonymity.
You know, that anonymity thing is really important, and that's another argument, I think, to have people respond to the two different parts of the survey, that you have one address for the random sample and one for the not random sample, because then you don't, the concern I have is with the password. So if you make it so that you can only answer once from whatever computer address is called, I forget, IP? Okay, an IP address, that might be the better way, then they don't have to have a password, which everyone knows can be tracked back. So I would encourage that, and then you follow up to the random sample. Yes, you might reach a few people who responded, but if it's only 5 or 10 people who responded, it'll be 1 in 20 or 10 that you say, oh, thank you, you already responded, I apologize.
Your incentive is you'll stop calling if they...
I took it already.
That's why I vote early on mail ballots.
Any other comments or suggestions on the incentive question itself?
Yes, Chris, unfortunately, because Lisa raised a whole issue with me that is, I'm not going to dog this to the death, but let's say I had interpreted from the thing I worked through that there were, let's say we had 4,600 households, let's say a sample size, statistically significant sample size is 350 to 400, which is what I believe it's going to be. Are all of those people going to have the same password, or are they going to have 350 discrete passwords?
Well, if we use the passwords, there would be 350 discrete. That was
Okay.
what we were recommending.
We've got to make absolutely sure that those in no way are trackable back to individual respondents. No way whatsoever. And the concern then is if you start calling them,
How do you know?
yeah, so there are absolutely ways to do this, because this whole survey thing is a big profit center in the universe. So there are ways to do it, I just want to make sure we employ those ways.
You can make it so there is no password. So they can't figure out who
Right,
it was.
what's the purpose of letting password? Once we get one response per household, that first response is what should count, and I'm wondering what the value of that password is.
Well, I think off of this discussion that we would probably recommend taking the password off.
Okay.
And that random sample would not have a password. However, if we're going to call people to follow up, we need a mechanism by which we know whether they responded or not.
You don't. That's what I'm saying. If 5 or 10% are all that call, you can still call them, and if they tell you they responded already, you go to the next house. You don't have to know who they were.
And the way in which that does work is if there is an independent third party not related in any way, shape, or form to this community that is doing the calls, that is required. Because, for
Is that our
example,
firm?
I assume,
We're
yeah,
that.
I'm assuming, in other words, if ProStack called them
Yeah.
and said you haven't, that raises all kinds of issues. But if it's some,
So to clarify, there would not be a password on the 400, and we would call to try to boost the sample size as needed.
right.
And I think if you don't have a password, you have to send them to separate surveys.
Meaning?
Meaning the people who are the random sample get sent to a web
Yes.
address, and the other people get sent to a different web address with exactly the same surveys. Yes, okay.
Agreed, and I think we would probably time it so that the initial wave would be the random sample.
They can be concurrent, doesn't matter.
Now, and to confuse this further, but this will really bog down the non-survey aficionados here, but for us who've done this, if you release the survey at the same time to the statistically solid random sample and to the community at large, as you have to augment your statistical sample to reach your required level of participation, you may call somebody who's already submitted just one to the other pot. So there's a reason to stair-step those, the timing of those, to release it to the broader community after you have successfully completed your random sample. So I'm just throwing this out there. It could potentially be a consideration, but I'm going to let you guys address that one.
Question about the password, though. If you don't have a password, couldn't you take it?
No.
Why?
You can set it so it'll only take this one IP address once.
But does each individual computer have its own IP?
Yes.
So I've got an iPad, I've got 2 iPhones, I've got 3 computers in my house, and I've got 2 at work.
Yeah.
You could take it 5-6 times.
Yeah.
So I guess that we throw that back at Chris.
So the password actually prohibits that, because the only way you can access it with a password, then the password can only be used once, and then it doesn't allow you to access it.
That's true. It's a good point.
That's a good point, Chris.
Destroys?
That's the reason for the password, so they
Well, that was another reason, but we had, we have designed the survey so there's a save and complete feature in it, which lets somebody stop taking it at one time and come back, and typically we need to send them back an email, and that would not be able to be.
If the administration of this is all third-party, then my concerns are very minor. And I hear that they're all going to be third-party. So I think Chris raises a great point that the password prohibits that, so.
So we stick with the password.
At least for the sample that is random.
Well,
I just said at least.
Honestly, I don't think people are going to take a 40-question survey more than once.
Well, I hope it's not.
Unless you're one of those motivated group, they can keep on taking that motivated group and take it over and over again.
The motivated group.
20 swimmers times 4 electronic devices, that's 80 votes. That's
it's
right.
easier the second time.
Let's try it the second time. So,
As long as you answer exactly the same, you got to remember your answers.
I mean, in all of this, all of the data, it would be, as far as identifying data, it would be in third-party hands. So I don't know exactly how that, and I don't know whether we need to get a legal reading on that or not, or whether...
We've already caved on it, so I think that the question's moot.
Caved on what?
The password.
Yes, on password. I think
Use passwords, third-party hands.
And then, Chris, the password, so does it, when you get to the last question, you answer it, then it blocks the password, you can't use it anymore?
That's right.
Yeah, so you could get halfway through, say, okay, I'll come back to this later, shut it down, use the same password to finish it off.
What happens is you get an email sent to you with a new password that lets you back in to complete the survey. So it's automated.
Will there be a message that tells them that if you exit now, a new password will be sent to you to your email?
So that's just that.
Okay.
Good points, Lisa.
You want to talk about
You're motivated.
This is going better than I thought.
Because now we're getting too defensive.
All right, we can move on.
Question, anything you want.
Thank you.
oh, wait, prize. Did we say no?
No prize.
To the prize? Okay,
I'm saying no to
okay,
prize.
okay.
Save the money for the follow-up.
If we don't have confidentiality, forget it. No price.
Library.
I don't know, it's not good.
Okay, so you all have seen the beta that was up. We've received substantial feedback from you and as well as ProStack members. So we're now parsing through that and redoing the survey to reflect input, and a lot of it is some wordsmithing and cleaning up of text and so forth. So what we're doing tonight is I've identified the questions where we felt that there was didn't seem like there was agreement among the board in terms of feedback we were getting, or where one or two of you would have raised a question about it that we thought needed to be clarified. And so there are 4 areas that we need your direction on, and then maybe another one I have to add. And that's what we'd like to focus on here. And then, as soon as we determine these, we'll put within a short time, day or 2 days, or whatever it's going to take, we'll put the revised survey back up for you to look at. So the first of these is, and I'll also say that from two of you, this feedback came very late, and we just got, Trustee Skumatz, as I understand, just has gotten some feedback today, so we haven't had a chance to reflect that in our thinking or get together and address those points. But the one that we have is the library definition. And this is a rewording of the question, and it appears in a number of places where we list different possible options for a library space or facility. And based on the feedback, we are suggesting this rewording of those different options. So this is obviously a critical one. There are a couple of places where we have the library options listed, and we need to make sure that it's something you're happy with and it meets your objectives and gives you the information you'd like. So this is a question which, I don't know if it helps, you want to look the question up, but it's, and this is a question where also a few people had asked if it were possible to allow to choose multiple selections on this, so we can talk a little bit about that too. Yeah, the screen, please. Maybe I can.
Which question is this?
24.
That's fundamental problems. Way past this.
Right, so this is a question that had those four headings in the beta that you saw, and we were asked to, a number of you commented that we needed more definition, better definition, and to clarify those different options. So the wording we've chosen, and this is the only slide where we have to switch back and forth here, a small media digital center in Superior with a continued arrangement with Louisville. And part of the challenge here was how to address the arrangement with Louisville, whether or not we wanted to, felt it was important to make it clear that in these options, they would go hand in hand with a continued relationship with Louisville Public Library. So
I wouldn't like to see that being assumed. I would want while Louisville's done a nice job, if Boulder has a better job for us, or Broomfield has a better deal for us, or if we decide to go a children-oriented facility in Superior with our own link to the statewide searchable thing, this blocks me from saying that. And so if you want to, I would say a small media center in Superior, a children-oriented in Superior's own full service, continue arrangement, and allow people to pick more than one. If they want to continue arrangement with Louisville, they can still have it. But this one assumes Louisville too much.
I'm sorry, what was your number 4? What was your number 4?
My number 4 is, I would pick a different, I would allow what you've got there for the fourth one, and I would add a fifth one that says something like, supplement some of the above with Louisville arrangement, or something like that.
well, that's a possibility. I mean, that's...
But or maybe Louisville or another library or something like that.
The purposes of this, we were trying to essentially hold that concept. I mean, we've debated both sides of the point. I'm not debating you, I understand it. And that would be one possibility.
Hey, Joan, when I discussed this very same point with you, you had a very relevant question that you said rightfully that you needed to ask the board. I did the same thing, Lisa, and I made it a wholly different approach entirely on this question. So Jim asked me the correct question. Is this a library survey? And how involved do you want us to get on the library needs within this survey? Or is the board going to do a separate library survey? And I think we at the board need to answer that question. Are we doing a few preliminary feelers on library in the context of a inside use survey? Or do we expect this to be more full-blown regarding library needs?
And I have a really strong opinion about this, and I want to go out to the customer, I want to go out to the residents once with a statistical survey, and I have a really huge problem with it saying indoor. It should be indoor and outdoor. I want one statistical survey. I don't want to match up the outdoor with where and how and whatever. I just want the ranking of which outdoor things they will use or they want in the community. And I do not, and you came and you asked us, and I said, and I was not alone saying that I wanted it both indoor and outdoor. You came back, and I saw a head nod that implied to me that it was indoor and outdoor. You came back and said that you personally weren't happy with that. That, to me, the board had said something about that, and I really would like to see us cut down a lot of these questions. I think there's way more questions than we need in this, and to add a couple of questions about outdoor facilities. And so I would like to see some information on library. I'd like to see less than what we've got currently on the indoor, and I'd like to add some questions on outdoor.
I mean, let me make it clear that these are not my personal, I personally have concerns about pivoting this survey into a mixed survey after.
I always saw it as both.
But this, I can tell you that this has been thoroughly discussed in many venues, ProStack and so forth, and it's not me. I'm not driving that. That's the consensus of everybody. In fact, I'm sure it's almost unanimous consensus.
If I'm going to have useful information to make decisions right away about what's happening across the street, one survey, and it's got to be now. It's got to be this survey, and it's got to happen now. It's got to be for both.
And Joe, and let me just, I just want to make one point that whenever you're this whole process started with the board. The board came to us, goes back now almost 18 months, and citizens have brought forth to you ideas for a community center. The board gave us these marching orders. This is one that didn't even really come from within ProStack. It came from you, the board. This is what we were asked to do, and if the board wants to change the objective, that's fine. Tell us. But it's not going to answer the indoor. It's not going to answer the indoor space question, which was what all of this was supposed to do. $50,000.
In the last meeting, this discussion occurred, and I think we did not steer this away from the direction we're currently taking, so we're not going to be on track for our timelines if we're going to be
doesn't take long
revising things, but
it does take.
Can I say something, or?
And there's, I guess what I don't understand, though, there is a considerable amount of outdoor in this survey, and some of the questions, you have as many outdoor amenities listed as you do indoor.
No, I think there's a good balance.
I mean, we're concerned that there's too much outdoor, but and we didn't put it in because it's just the way it naturally evolved. We think there's good context to having outdoor and indoor where we put outdoor and indoor. But to think that this survey can be shortened and then answer questions for the future of this town on indoor and outdoor, I just don't see that as realistic.
Okay, so
Trustee Morris?
I agree with Trustee Skumatz. I do not want to do a survey on the library 6 months from now or a year from now. This is the time right now So if we want to expand a little bit on the choices that we have, we need to get that information now. I mean, I'm very clear about that. I don't want to go back for another, the library is a big issue. If we can have a few more, we can tweak this a little bit and make it, give a few more choices to our residents, I think that would be great. On the other hand, I think the survey does have outdoor, and I'm not sure what your concern is about having indoor and outdoor in one survey. I mean, why is that
He said more outdoor.
I'm just pointing out that,
I'm not asking for
And
more
change
outdoor.
and change the name of it, for one
I'm
thing.
good with what we have.
If you think it includes enough outdoor, then don't make it say indoor. But
Well,
I don't,
it's not-
I didn't see.
I think it's a nice balance. I don't think he has outdoor.
Yeah, the
So-
question, I mean, I'm just saying that
Not much.
that it's important that the objective be clear, and if at the end of the day, we can't answer the question of is there a need for indoor space, and what is that need? That is what we were asked to do.
That is
And to-
part of the survey, though.
to-
You already
It doesn't only have to have one objective, it can have more than one objective.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is one objective, but that's already
The
part of the
objective
survey.
is to figure out what we're supposed to put over there and in the rest of town.
Yeah, but it can't have,
It's not just one.
can't have conflicting objectives. If the end,
I really want to hear from Chris, but I'm going to support totally Jim's interpretation. This was assigned when the Manshores and their indoor group was really active, and we said we need a survey. So we, of course, can choose to edit it now and require something else, but that is my understanding, that was our primary need. And my other understanding is we're facing a September 1 response deadline to Superior Town Center developers on indoor
And outdoor.
uses. No, September 1 is indoor, where we have to commit to the second and third floor above the square on September 1. We have other outdoor deadlines.
We have that as an
on the
outdoor
process.
deadline too. The outdoor deadline relates to the same date. But in any case,
No, Lisa's right, actually. That is true.
yeah.
You're right.
It's a big problem. We have to get voted.
Actually,
Yes, go ahead.
I was just told that the outdoor deadlines have been moved to December.
So we're going to do another survey 2 months from now?
No, we're doing the outdoor process. We've got that whole separate outdoor
No,
process.
but I'm not doing that, that process is not enough for me. Random sample.
Well, to the extent that, I think if Lisa feels determinedly about this, I'm interested in entertaining her specific outdoor questions that need to be added to give you
That's fine.
your data on what
Hardly
you
any
need to hear
questions,
from.
And I see lots of this that we can cut, so.
Chris, go ahead. We could,
So I'd say we go the opposite direction. I think there's too many questions here. But I would also say this has to stay specific to indoor needs. We've been talking about this for, like Jim said, 18 months, but it goes way before the Mansours. This goes back to Kevin Cologne 5 years ago, where they're trying to determine where we can put a space and what the needs are. So I say we keep it specific to indoor needs. We have the process for the civic space across the street that we're going through now, that we're completing, we're going to be voting on next month. I say keep it simple and focused on just indoor needs, and I would reduce the number of questions.
Very well.
I would reduce the number of questions. I'd ask indoor and outdoor because I don't want another survey out, and I also want responses from random groups on both the indoor and outdoor, and we will not get it from the process.
Jim, why do you see that's a conflict? I don't see why you see
There's
that's a
no
conflict.
because you're talking about having enough questions
Yeah.
to answer a whole other, that is actually more complex in some ways than...
Not if you don't talk
indoor.
location.
And and I'm mostly, it really is up for you to decide what you want to do.
Can I give you an
You're
example?
following a plan that's gone on, remember that this is a $50,000 budget for this. It goes back
Seriously?
18 months or more. And actually, if you include the citizen stuff, which, you participated in, and town manager Magley participated in to some degree. And it had a total of 6 or 7 community engagement meetings just on this. We had 3 last year, we've had 3 this year, we've had all of these consultants and everything else. And now we're at the point where we need to do the statistical survey, the quantitative survey, which was called for and anticipated right at the very beginning and all along, And I feel our responsibility is to be able to answer those questions. If this is going to become a omnibus Parks and Rec amenities survey, that's such a different ballgame. I don't think it's a matter of just adding a few questions.
Right,
We'd
it's
have
not.
to go through the whole process. I'm not saying we have to go all the way back 18 months, but certainly what we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 months, we're going to have to largely repeat. We're going to have to get all that input again. We're going to have to get ProStack and everybody else to go through that as part of their process. And I just think it's not what we were asked to do.
I want to make another point, though, to the number of questions. Just question number 4 was one of the questions that I had an issue with, and I want to understand what the importance...
Yes.
I want to understand what the importance was of that question, because if we're going to use the responses to this question about deciding on outdoor spaces, the one question we're asking for input on outdoor field facilities, then it says in parentheses, multi-purpose baseball/softball. Those are 2 totally different fields, and you've got to break those out if you're going to be making any kind of decision on if people want those types of fields. Then you've got courts. Again, you've got to break those out too.
Right.
So you're going to multiply the number of questions by 3 at least. So I think that alone, I want to understand what the purpose of this question is, and how are the responses going to be used for what we're trying to get out of this survey. Because I hesitate to answer outdoor field facilities, because there's some fields I think we need, there's other fields I don't think we need, so how do I answer that?
Well, the reason was done this way at this, in the beginning, is so that, because we're trying to keep it narrow to categories, we're not attempting to answer definitively, statistically, questions about outdoor.
Okay,
It's
so
beyond the scope
what I
of
can
the
see
survey.
happening is that we have a lot of people that say to outdoor fields, multi-purpose baseball and softball, not very much. They don't think it's needed. So we could say, well, people told us that we don't need multi-purpose fields. That you can't use that answer, you can't use that response because...
Because this is not intended to answer that question.
Okay, so again,
If it is,
the
then we
purpose?
have to,
Okay.
I mean, you're
I think it
I
needs
agree
to
with you.
expand it.
And if it is, we have to expand many of those.
Yes,
yes.
And then outdoor court sports, then you have to, basketball versus tennis versus volleyball versus pickleball versus...
Lawns, landscaping, and
But I don't want,
Right.
It goes on and on. So this could be one.
and I went into a subsetting like
Suggesting
that.
getting rid of the outdoor field.
I'm saying
Okay.
eliminate any reference to outdoor amenities, and let's just focus on the indoor,
And
get that done, be good at it. Be really
what
good at
I
it.
recommended, what I need, what I'm looking to see from this is not an answer to somewhat on aquatic facilities. I want that broken out, outdoor and indoor. So I know whether or not there is a strong perceived demand for an indoor aquatic facility. I can't tell that with that. So you make a good point that the questions we're asking, we need to have sufficient enough detail on to do something with the response.
Well, and part of my problem was, I'm not really that nuts about current facilities. I want to know what we need, so skip all the current facility questions. We don't need those. All we need to know is what's in the future. That's why I considered cutting this question, because it was about current. I don't care about current. I want to know about future. And so I only thought we needed 1, 2, 3, 8 to 16, 20, and 44, 49. And then take all the rest of that out of there and add some outdoor questions that get us to what we need there, and not
But that's what
aquatic, then indoor, outdoor, but aquatic, indoor, aquatic, outdoor, everything I need, even playing field, not a lot of, this sort of thing. I want people to make trade-offs. The other problem I had was the questions you had on financing. I don't think it gives us a useful piece of information, because I'm just going to tell, no, I just want to...
We're going through
It's a problem for me, because I don't want to hear about an indoor facility where it's not matched with what the cost is. People can say they want the moon, and then later on somewhere you say, well, would you be willing to pay $20? Well, $20 isn't going to come near to the moon. So if you're going to ask about indoor facilities, I want it right around that indoor facility question to say, for an indoor facility that doesn't include pools or some other huge, whatever the other huge thing is, the range is going to be X to Y on your tax bill. And I don't think it's useful otherwise we just hear...
Is that too complicated to do?
Yes.
Well, but the question that they've got is useless, then I'd kill the questions you've got.
It can be done. It can be done.
It can.
Well, it can be done, but that's what tripped up the last.
That's what's useful.
survey.
Right.
It was a mess.
I actually...
It's a different kind of survey you're asking. It's achieving a different result. I mean, this started with trying to determine what people's needs are. If you're going to focus the survey on answering price-value trade-offs, it's a different dimension.
It's a different...
I mean,
Jim, before we get onto the price thing, can we dispense with the library thing that we never
right,
let's go back to
properly...
this
I'd like to make sure you ask about libraries.
So are we done with
In
indoor,
meaningful way.
outdoor questions?
No, we're not.
I hope
I don't
not.
think we're done with anything.
We're going to skip around back to the library, and then we're going to come back to the indoor, outdoor thing?
Yeah, because we've been all over the ballpark.
Yeah.
Well, I think we can do the indoor, why not,
We can
why
definitely...
not come to some recommendation on indoor versus outdoor before we go to library, back to the library thing?
As far as my interest in the survey had always been about indoor.
Correct.
I thought that's what we were trying to do, and we had the engagement process for the outdoor.
Right.
And so, that's where my head was.
Yeah.
We started this.
I agree conceptually with Lisa. In a perfect world, had we thought this all through, broadly, perhaps we would have charged you with something different.
Sandy, I disagree. I think that we have thought this through because we were so focused on identifying the needs for indoor space.
Right.
And we went round and round at goal planning sessions. And
What I'm saying is, Lisa makes an excellent point, that nothing we have done on outdoor is a random sample. It isn't. And it sure would be nice if there were a component of randomness to our sampling on outdoor. However, I don't think that is wise to correct in this survey here, because the survey's got a lot of objectives to meet, including, it sounds like, more questions on library rather than less. So, and it's already long. I don't know who...
It's a couple more options.
It's not a big deal.
Yeah, the
It ends
library...
the course through the whole survey.
Yeah.
Stop.
But so my instinct is to keep it indoor focused as well.
We're missing out a great opportunity, though.
It's a big mistake. It's...
Not exclusively indoor, there are some outdoor references, but I'm satisfied with the feel of it. So
Yeah.
The outdoor questions need to be
What opportunity
more
are we missing?
comprehensive.
When you say we're missing an opportunity?
To do a random survey, we're going to pay in a timely way for both, and make...
What does it hurt?
I don't understand either.
Yeah, I think
I
that
totally
we'd be
don't
spending
understand.
money on something that we already know the answer to, that we need fields in this town. Yeah, absolutely do. And we've been round and round on that.
to it, I don't think we
We need
bias.
random answers to that question, not Mustang advocates and somebody else advocates and somebody else advocates. We need random responses to those questions. We do not get them, and we haven't gotten through the process, and we will never get them through the process.
I mean,
Never.
if you speak to town staff about the amount of fields that we have and the amount of people who are trying to use the fields and can't use them, that we are way over capacity.
I agree with you.
So I'm saying that, this sounds funny, but how much do you open it up to the entire community when you know that you've got user groups that can't effectively, safely use the current fields that we have, that we need more
That's what I'm
fields?
saying. What does it hurt, though, to put it in a random sample to find out what the town is? Why is that a big issue?
Again, I think that
I mean, is it really that much?
we're steering away from what we originally planned to do.
I don't see him not tweaking it. I think it's a...
It's adding a couple questions.
Well, I see a new face.
Questions.
I see a new face and we're bickering, so...
It's great.
So,
Fred Bickle, I'm the ProStack chair, and I just, as listening to this dialogue and this discussion, which is certainly, I think, a very valuable discussion, this is going to be an important survey. We are going to, and I appreciate what you've said as far as making sure it is a random survey, so you have a pulse sort of on what the town feels. unfortunately, as we've been working on our indoor process, we schedule these things for months, and we go over, and the process, like we've talked about, can be somewhat slow and cumbersome. We have worked very hard on trying to put something together which was focused as an indoor survey, trying to redo it. I know Jim has spent, and members of the committee, Peter Bottomley as well, and either some of the trustees, many, many hours trying to work on this. I do think that if it's decided that you want something simple, that's comprehensive, and gives a general overview, I honestly do believe that maybe one thing you might wish to consider is simply working directly with town staff and our excellent consultant team to put something together. We'll be happy to, of course, look at and give comment on the drafts, but I don't think having us try to start that process again from scratch would be the quickest or most efficient way to get you the information.
Nobody's asking you to do that. I think the survey is really great, with just some tweaking, that's all.
Okay, well, if it is, I'm just saying, but if it's something where you feel strongly that it should be a short, something completely different, I just don't know how much more time we could spend on it to get you what you wanted.
I think a lot could be achieved by adding a question that has a list of outdoor facilities that have been toyed with in that process, and we say, we have a column for your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, also a priority and not a priority. That would do it for me.
And the point is, we've got 2 extra weeks built into this, so I don't think there's really any harm for Lisa to get the essential idea communicated to see what impact it would have. I think that's fair. If she wants to go through the work and work with whoever, whatever, and if that idea, as she puts forth, is doable, let's do it. But fundamentally changing this to all-encompassing thing is where I'm coming from, but I'm willing to let you have that opportunity.
We would welcome feedback from the board, but what I would like to not have happen is to get the feedback and spend the time and then come again, and then it's another sense of frustration where we're not providing you with what you need. But we'd be happy to take input, or if someone would like to try to revamp the survey and represent it to us, we're all ears.
Brent, I think it's close to what we need and what we've asked for, so we're not asking for a revamping.
Okay.
It's not, so.
Great.
Are we back to library, or where are we?
We should finish the library and move on.
Jim, can you go to the...
Did we come to a consensus, though?
We haven't come to a consensus yet.
Can we agree to give Lisa the opportunity to submit a few additional questions that she feels accomplishes this? Elia feels the same way. She can put them out to the whole board. We can all say yea or nay, then they can go on, et cetera. And if they don't materially change things, at least we feel like we vetted the idea.
I think we've addressed everybody's comments so far, both on the trust, on the board and ProStack, and we haven't had the opportunity to give Lisa's, Trustee Skumatz's questions and concerns a shot. So what I said when we last addressed you a couple of weeks ago, we want to know what you'd like to learn, and we'll see how we can do it. So, but I am concerned though about trying to tack too many objectives. Library, it's going to solve our library problems, going to solve our indoor space and our outdoor space, and we're looking at so far, we're looking at a small piece of the outdoor. The outdoor list is very long and complex. I'm sorry, the indoor list is very long and complex. We haven't even really had it up on the screen here. You've seen it on the survey.
Yeah.
So you're talking about lists of amenities that will end up being 30 or 40, items that we have to parse through with surveys.
We can talk this till the cows come home,
Yeah,
but
you've expressed it.
I would like to see what's in Lisa's mind articulated on paper. And I'm willing to do that. Are you
Sure.
okay with doing that?
Absolutely.
Is everybody
Yes.
okay with doing that?
Yes.
Thank you for describing what we are feeling.
Can we go to the library?
Yes.
Jim, can you go back one slide on this?
Sure. Go ahead.
Because I'm going to tell you the problem I pointed out, that I thought would be a problem with this board. And I don't want to speak for the whole board.
Sorry, we're having a little...
We're going to work to pull up the actual digital survey as it would show up.
Right. What I'm referring to is on the actual digital survey, the page he ripped between, it had a long lead-in paragraph, which I've suggested be dramatically edited. But at the bottom it said, "It should be assumed we will continue our relationship with Louisville." And I said, whoa, there are some people on this board who strongly feel that should not be an assumption.
That would be me and you, for sure.
Right.
That's-
And so I said,
And Andrew, too.
that assumption must come out. And so Jim's and the committees, the working groups, choices here in the bullets that we just had up are to take that out as an assumption and instead provide discrete things that include or don't include that assumption. So that's why they're where they are. Okay, that's what they were trying to do.
But you couldn't choose packages that didn't include them. That was kind of the problem.
Right. I actually worded a different way, where it said, for example, a media digital library, and then had a sub-select underneath it that says with a continuing relationship with Louisville, not with a continuing relationship with Louisville. And you could say with a continuing relationship with a vendor to be, or with an entity to be decided. You know, there are sub-selects underneath there, but that's when Jim rightfully said, how specifically do we want to go into the detail on the library? So that is really the sort of pregnant question in the room.
I mean, we have library through so many of these questions as it is, that it runs the risk of overwhelming by impression what people are being asked to do. And
Right.
At the end of the day, it's not clear that you'll really get the definitive answer you want unless you really have a whole sub-survey here that's going to be aimed at the library.
Okay.
I think if you make it instead cut and paste, it doesn't have to
See
be that
that
many
assumption
options.
in the last line in the parentheses?
That's
saw
not
that.
changed, though.
I know,
Based
but
on-
that's what is catalyzing this conversation, Jim. Assume that a superior facility would also include privileges with a larger system such as Louisville's or Boulder's. And-
One, I wouldn't have gotten that far in the reading.
Right.
Two.
I had it down,
Way
that
too-
down to
it's
2
ridiculous,
lines.
yeah.
So I believe the edits are going to show up in the next version you get. But the point is, that wouldn't have been seen, so some people would answer with that assumption and some would answer it without it, which throws the question out, really, if people aren't answering it all on the same basis. So my request to them was, you have to put the assumption in with a small media digital center. Is that assumed to be with the Louisville?
But if you let people answer more than one, you get that. So I'm thinking, if you say a small, no, but if you let them,
Question. You're asking, do you want to stay with Louisville, or do you want to have small facilities?
Because I'm not-
With somebody else that gives you full facilities.
right, and you don't say to somebody else, we just say with somebody else, and then later on, you say, if we're going to partner, Louisville, or do you want it to be more open? That's it.
Yeah, I probably disagree with that. I think by saying with somebody else, we are opening it up to
I'd say with a
a whole other thing that is not the immediate question on the table. The immediate question on the table is, are our residents totally satisfied with Louisville? If yes, they need to answer. If they're not totally satisfied with Louisville, what would they like to see in Superior to augment Louisville? Or would they like us to have our own full-service thing here and forget Louisville entirely, which is what you tried to get at in your bullet points? And then, Lisa, you raise a question, or with still yet another yet-to-be specified entity out there. To me, that gets really far afield and becomes a whole separate library survey almost.
Well, you're not going to know even whether you'll be able to continue with Louisville. if you go to some of these other options, it's going to take some, I think you almost have to have a further defining of what we're doing with the library after we figure out if we want something here. And that requires exploring options and possibilities and then finalizing that.
So instead of litigating this all tonight, can the board say, we want more info on libraries in
Give us an option.
this question or the next question? Please come back to us with several options the next time you
In an
meet
email.
with us.
Oh.
Or in an email, in emails, to ask us which approach we like and try to get clarity that way.
And I think that we can get some space in the questions and ditch some questions, because I'm going to raise the big ugly, but are we really debating where the indoor facility is going to be?
No.
Do we really need to have, do you want it here, do you want it there, do you want it there, do you want it there? I don't think we do.
The intent
I think
is
it's-
very clear about, the intent of those questions is not at all to get into location, other than to understand where location is important. So we're not asking them, in fact, we're only giving very broad strokes, sense of north of Colton, south of Colton. We're trying to understand where there are some, faults or something in the system where people consider it to be an important factor, and not have them, we wouldn't be getting locations, they're just asked to put it in a general quadrant.
I would have to agree with Lisa on that one. I think it's confusing, and while that may be your intent, I think the person who takes it might not be answering for that purpose, what they're being asked. So I would probably take the location questions out, too.
I would really urge you to do
Is there a
that.
comment back? Actually, you're standing.
Well, we could smooth this conversation out a little bit.
Yep.
I guess if you don't mind.
No, we don't.
Make a couple of comments.
Please introduce yourself.
I am Chris Krupinski with Green Play.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Just listening to the conversation and trying to make sense out of all of this, there's just some really, some things to keep in mind no matter where this goes. The survey can only be so long or people aren't going to fill it out. So, you can put as many topics in it as you want, but the number of questions that you can ask is going to have to be reduced for each one of those. So you really have to think about, what do you need out of this in order to make the decisions that you need to make. The public cannot make the same decisions that you can. I mean, we can't, there's no way we can give them all of the information that you ultimately need in order to make decisions. So all we're looking for is, what are their general thoughts about it? It isn't a vote. It doesn't come down to whatever they say, that's what you're going to take because more of them said this than that. It's one piece of information. And there are lots of other pieces of information. And that just the little bit of discussion about aquatics and thinking about, what is that? What type of pool in it? It's much more than just indoor and outdoor, too. It's if it's indoor, is it lap lanes? Is it leisure? Is it both? I mean, that can be broken down into so many pieces. So the issue, I think, is that this opportunity has come up before you now, driven by the town center, that brings some urgency to having more information addressed than what was originally put out there. But the survey can still only be so long before we're done.
Thank you for restoring some.
And if it doesn't get done in a timely fashion, it isn't going to help you. So what we need is some help and direction to get a survey in order that can be helpful to you right now. But it's got to be enough, and you don't want to ask the public anything that you cannot live with their answer to. So if it really isn't theirs to decide, don't ask that kind of question.
That's right.
That's a good point.
So going down that path, Chris, that's where I nuke the location questions, and I also nuke the 30, 31, and 32 that say, is this a good reason?
Yes.
To me, I don't like a vote. No, I want to know hard results.
Me too.
This amenity versus that amenity or whatnot, and not necessarily more of a referendum-oriented issue.
Goners.
Oh, further comments are always good because they allow somebody to put a subjective comment on it. And that allows them to take as much time as they want on the survey. They can pass by those if they don't want to follow.
Yeah, and point out on the time that a good number of people, I'd say half the group has done it in 10 to 15 minutes. And then there are others that take it much longer.
Then there are those of us who took 24.
Depends on how, so you get that kind of variability.
But
No
did you
comments.
write?
No, no comments yet.
Right. But comments are something you do if you're
With
motivated.
comments?
I had comments too.
Yeah, I didn't keep a single question that was in the 30s.
Right, I think they...
I thought they were all...
Well, I don't know about all of them in the
But
30s, but
I'm just giving you
31 and 32.
same idea.
Where we're saying, is this an important reason to reject this, you know?
All right, well, that's one of
That's
the
good,
questions.
that's
one of the questions we
interesting
want to
stuff
ask
if
you
we
about.
had a short survey,
Not need to
but
know.
not in the context.
Are we randomly going from certain questions, or are we kind of going down the list?
I
don't
had
see
four,
how we can
and
possibly-
we just keep,
Okay.
all right.
So what's the next?
Number one was the library definition.
Okay.
And number two was, let's go right to the arguments question, what I call the arguments question. And that was, one reason that's there is because it's an identical question to 2007. It was a question that gave some rich feedback in 2007. And it's a question that we'd be able to compare with 2007 to see how attitudes have changed. So that's the major purpose for it. Now, I didn't put that question in. It came before it got to ProStack in the original draft. But I will say that one of the things I think is good about it is it gets into certain motivations and opinions that the respondent has that can really give some insight into what they're thinking, particularly when we cross-tab those answers to some of the other questions. And personally, I'll just use myself as an example. I probably will not, if we did all of these things, or many of them, I probably would not be using a lot of them. And our kids are grown, or out of the house, it's just not something I'd probably use. But I think I generally approach these things in terms of property values and what's good for the town and what's good for property values. And this is one place where you can get at that kind of a response, that kind of an insight from the respondent, because that's exactly the kinds of questions they're asked. I think they're rich questions in terms of information and insight, particularly when we grow
I
them.
appreciate that, Jim, but also those questions that ask for your household and for the community at large accomplish a little bit of that measurement as well. And I think the thing is really long. And I'd rather everybody take care with the rest of the questions on there and not feel rushed by too many questions. So in a perfect world, I'd have them all. But in this world, that's why I suggested dropping them.
And I don't see the relevance as much from 2007. That was 7 years ago. So,
Okay. We can drop them.
What's your next point?
okay.
Next point is on the location. Sure. Introduce.
Peter Bottomley, I'm on ProStack, and I've been working with Jim heavily with the working group for the survey. One thing I want to say to you, Sandy, you're saying the question of how would you answer for your household, or how would you answer for the community at large, the only question that asks that specifically is the library. So if you eliminated 30, 31, 32, 33, would you therefore be saying that you would want to see a similar question of your opinion of your household versus your opinion of the community?
No, not for me. For me, it was asked where it needed to be asked. If you felt like dropping the 30, 31, and 32 raises a need to ask it elsewhere, I'd ask you to bring that to our attention, but nothing comes to mind. I actually think this is a very thorough, within the context of these types of projects. You're going to get more data than you know what to do with already.
Yeah.
And so I think it can be dropped without any really net negative to the survey. unless, of course, I'm overlooking something that you bring to my attention and say, should we insert this here as well? Because this, you've got it right up there, interestingly, for my household, for the Superior community.
For the library.
But it's only for the
Yeah, I know,
library. So
but
do you feel-
if you think dropping 30, 31, and 32 begs that same question in another area that is material to what we're looking to get out of it, which you pretty much understand what we're looking, then just suggest to us.
I guess
that.
my only suggestion would be, for instance, you have the long question starting with 7 through, 17, about indoor amenities, specifically, individual indoor amenities. I mean, is there a need to ask of, an indoor recreation facility? How is your opinion for your household versus the community?
If I erred, I would take out the line on this for the Superior community, because that becomes total conjecture. It's hearsay in a court, it's not allowed in a court, and I would only allow you to answer for your own household.
There are exceptions to that.
Sorry? But what I think it did here on the library, which is a very important issue to me, maybe I don't use Louisville Library much as my household. So for my household, I might answer one way.
Yeah,
But I still value it totally.
for the community.
For the community. And so for the library, this mattered to me to ask it in this fashion. But it doesn't mean that other questions likewise needed similar treatment.
So you don't feel like the board would need to know then whether or not like an indoor rec center?
The board will have to tell you themselves. I'm just telling you, I don't feel a need that I can identify right now that I would have if you got rid of 30, 31, and 32.
Because I think it could be easily argued, like the library question is arguing, that, someone's opinion of how an indoor rec center affects their household versus their property value is very different.
No.
There's many people who might not use an indoor rec center, just like they might not use a library, but they say, well, my property value, my community needs that.
Well, I get what you're saying, Peter, but I say it in different ways, just apples to apples here. If you wanted to ask this question on a indoor recreational facility, you would say, for my household, and allow them to answer, and for the Superior community. That is totally a different question as to reasons why they feel that way. I don't really necessarily care about the reasons they feel that way, because there's too much I do want to know. I want to know whether or not they feel we need it. And you could ask for my household and for the Superior community in that question, like on indoor rec space or an indoor, I don't know, I'm going to use Chris Stupinski's thing, indoor swimming pool, or you could ask it in a few more judicious questions that were really important to you to find out. But why property value increases and all that kind of stuff is beyond what I'm trying to find out in this survey.
They don't, okay. We get it.
What else?
So the other is the location. Again, we're not trying to get into location, we're just trying to understand where location is sensitive in a particular issue. So, in fact, we've simplified it significantly where we'd simply refer back to the map. So we were hung up on those definitions, original town, west of McCaslin and all that sort of thing. Since we have the map, we'd simply ask them to identify it where they'd like to see it by the map. Now, again, the purpose is in 2007, there were very strong sentiments in the survey regarding location. And there weren't specific locations. It was, if we want to do this, we think it should be in this part of town or that part of town. And it's just trying to see where that might be an issue.
Don't care.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that, yeah. I won't do the location part. It's up to us to decide,
And it's also maybe where we can find the place.
All right. We'll take that out too. You're going to regret that one, but... So I think it's good information, that's good to have. The other one is the financial, and I understand that you've got a lot of comments on that, Trustee Skumatz, but given the question that exists now, which breaks it into $25 brackets in terms of what people would be willing to pay, it has been suggested that we're recommending that we work in terms of $50 increments.
And my problem is how we're going to use that. If people say, people say, the thing I want is whatever we have on here that's the most expensive thing, and they're only willing to pay $10. I mean, how are we going to use it?
That's not realistic.
Yeah, I was just saying, they're allowed to do that in this survey.
Yeah, but that's not realistic, right?
I'm just saying, so how will I use that information? I won't. The two are independent and useless that way.
If I want to have an indoor pool with all the accoutrements of, and I only want to spend a minimum amount of money, that's not realistic. That doesn't, right?
But that's what we can get, that we can very easily get that. And I think, Frank, it's made me think throughout this conversation that I'm not sure why we're asking needs of you and your family. To me, what I think, just think about this, and I'm not saying we should do this, I'm just saying just give it some thought. To me, maybe each of the questions should be instead, do you think Superior needs and you're willing to pay for A, B, C, D? I mean, that's to me the real crux of the question. So, anyway, just a thought.
You think Superior needs, you're saying?
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't say, that's Sandy answer for the fact that she thinks a library ought to be in town, even if she's not going to use it. And I can say that I think a library is needed because, even if I'm not going to use it, because I think the town needs it.
Right.
To me, that's the critical question, not am I going to use it? That's almost not what I care about. I care about, does the town need it, and am I willing to pay for it?
That's an excellent point and a good suggestion, although it is moving away from what we originally set out to do, which is determine relative needs for indoor space uses. So you're right, if you're asking that, it's an excellent way to put the question, if you're asking about a library, if you're asking about a rec center, but that's not what this was intended to do. This was intended to understand what the residents' needs are that require indoor space, so that if
Couldn't we still answer it though that way? Like,
I think so.
I think you can,
Well, you're asking, what is Superior's need for a, give me an example.
A pool.
A meeting.
A swimming pool.
What is Superior's need for, I mean, as you go down the list of 15 or 20 different amenities that we're trying to understand what are important to people, that
First priority, second priority, third priority, also a priority, not a priority. You're done.
I've never been to the Louisville Library, but I definitely feel like we need to have a library here, and because it's the right thing for this community. When if I have to pay for it, even if I never go there, I'm still willing because it's very important to me.
No, it's a good, it may kind of bridge that whole.
I think it might help.
Well-
I like your suggestion.
Thank you.
The first part of it, I think it's very, very doable, Jim, that I think some places you're going to find, maybe it doesn't quite work as well, but I think as an overriding theme, it's a good one. The thing was, Lisa had a two-pronged comment there. What does Superior need, and what are you willing to pay for it? Getting to that, what are you willing to pay for it, is a real complicated challenge. And so my first comment to Jim was the exact same thing. Why don't we have this concept of pay from square one? And boy, I couldn't make it work. So I'm going to again invite Lisa to sit down with these guys, which is what I did for a couple hours, and work through some of my things and try to make them work. And then I had to sort of back off that pay issue, making modifications basically to the way it appeared here, but I think $25 increments is bogus. People don't understand that $1.5 million on a $200,000 home is $30 a year. So there was no context for that 25. So we talked about that. that a lot. And most, do you know a home here that's $200,000? So a $400,000 home pays $60 just for privileges at Louisville Library. So I'm just actually, I think your point's well made, Lisa, and I'd love to have you sit down with them and see whether or not that pay feature can be incorporated more early on in a way that doesn't sort of bollocks up the works, because I do think we're pretty far down the pike right now, but yet if I'm open to a great suggestion or approach to it.
Okay.
Is that your fourth one?
On that. We've been, I think, in all of our conversations and with both ProStack and trustees, we've probed on that because that's the one we're looking for ideas on to get what you want. Do you have any thoughts on that, Chris, as far as?
No, I think we got.
You'll have to come up to the microphone. Sorry.
I think the public wants to talk at some
I
point.
think we've gotten a lot of suggestions and redirection. I think the concept of integrating the willingness to pay towards each of the various kinds of facilities that are proposed is complicated and labor-intensive on the part of the respondent. And so I think I'm open to some ideas on that, and we'll try to work through them, but it's always challenging on these surveys to do justice at that grain and also get the broader perspective that's a part of the objectives as well.
Can we ask other questions that aren't near?
Yes, we can move on.
Wait, let me finish
Okay.
my, do you mind? Let me just do this one, and then
Okay.
anyone can add your own. The other one that we were getting different reaction to were the questions, it was the if you can find it, Patrick, it's number 7, right before number 7. So we had some, and there was a lot of debate in this in ProStack and in the team that was working on this. And it was felt that there was a need to have some context, set the table really, to explain Superior Town Center, or at least introduce that concept so people weren't confused. So there were strong feelings among many in the group that it was important to have this kind of statement. But some of you have questioned it, so.
It's way too long.
We would like your direction.
I mean, do you think there's anybody that would say no indoor facilities are needed? I mean, is that even possible that somebody would say that?
I think,
Yeah.
we work with
I
this.
think it'd be the minority though.
They'll say, the ones who think it'll be too expensive will say no.
None? I find that hard to believe.
But
I
Jim's
think-
question is not that.
No, I think that's-
3 paragraphs of the
Oh, my
legal
God.
statement.
It's not this is, forget about this.
I will tell you that I thought it was way up.
I wouldn't read it.
And that the direction on Superior Town Center
I wouldn't read it.
had the impact of almost sort of biasing, and I was very concerned about that because it's so front and center in this town, and it has divided this town. And so what I believe here is probably a honest attempt to just educate. My concern was that it added bias.
Yeah.
And we've got to be very careful how we go about it.
What's the bias about, please?
Well, I've already
What are you
gone through
trying to-
this.
What's the following, what is this introducing?
Well,
What
let's
is,
introduce a
what's the
series of
next
questions
batch of
that are-
questions about?
That are,
Do we care where, I mean, if we're not asking location, why do we care about this?
because just based on our experience of all of the community engagement, that it's a confusing point for people who come into this room and sit down and we start asking them about these kinds of questions in an engagement context.
Don't ask them.
And they say, well, isn't this going to be in town center? Why are you asking?
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, I can see.
But-
that.
And And they think that Boulder Valley Ice, I mean, they've heard from rumors and hearsay that what they think is going to happen, and then that confuses their...
So, as I suggest, here's what I suggested. Just a simple sentence. You may have heard about the Superior Town Center to be built at McCaslin US 36. Please answer all these questions without any assumptions of what might or might not be included in the Superior Town Center, period, end. Because we want unbiased answers that are not driven in any way by anybody's presumptions or assumptions about the Superior Town Center.
That's much better than that.
Wait, couldn't you just have the middle paragraph there?
I like what you just said, that's not what you said. That's
Yeah,
not what
I'm
you said.
working on it, it's a work in progress. Write that down, it's on
That's not what
page.
you...
What's wrong with the middle paragraph? Eliminate the first paragraph.
It doesn't matter, because we've said it
Or is it
doesn't.
simpler?
We're not asking their opinion on where they're to be located.
Yep, I don't want
We
to.
want to know what their needs are, not what location has to do with it. So, you know.
I'm fine with what you just said, and we
Okay.
have it on tape, so we can
Right.
capture it. But,
Soft.
At 10 of 10, just so you know.
yeah, well, that's all I
So you don't
have.
have to watch that long.
So it's a question of...
Yeah, I just have a few questions, and just about some of the content. Question 8, age-specific facilities. We have senior, teen, game room, child watch, and children's indoor, but there's nothing for 18 to 55. I mean, should we...
Well, I was hoping, if you'll indulge us, not to go through every, I mean, we have that question from you, we'll address
Look
it.
at number 12, for
So-
example.
We've, the only, so if we've gotten feedback from any of you,
Okay.
we're assuming we're going to address it either completely or partially, and we think we have good solutions. So I think we've fixed that or are fixing that. So,
So then go to 14, Chris, and see how they keep building.
Yeah, but does that answer the question of...
for example,
different age groups between...
If different age groups can
a
use the
number of
same
you,
facility.
a number of people, when I
doesn't
say
matter.
you, it includes ProStack people too who have taken this, have had input on the
Okay.
page break. So see, all of that's in work to be turned around, and then see if we missed anything.
Okay, I'm not sure if I asked this question or presented this to you. Question 26. What other indoor facilities do we have in town right now, other than the schools?
The fire station.
We don't.
And there's a
So-
typo in the title of 16, in case
So
you
if we
care.
go to question 26, do we even need that question?
Facilities is misspelled in 16. In the title. Sorry, it was just screaming out at me.
So just in the spirit
Those
of
activities.
reducing the number of questions, it seems 26 is not needed, because it's thinking about the public and private indoor facilities available in Superior. How satisfied is your household with the following indoor facilities?
There are private facilities down there.
Well,
And again, I don't know why we need to know about current, I think we just need to know about what's needed in the future. I think we can ditch a lot of questions if we just ditch those. I don't see any reason.
if everyone's very satisfied with what they have.
So then they'll say they don't need new ones, end of story.
But it's a verifying way, it's a way of...
Don't need it. It makes the questionnaire a
But
lot longer.
that is being rewritten.
Okay.
I mean, we've already gotten, I can't remember if it was from you or others, but,
Okay. Okay.
so 26 is being
I'll make your vote
reworded
future.
to reflect that.
The one thing that I want to make sure is that we are not attacking this survey. You've done a tremendous job. We just want to tweak it to be the very best where people will get maximum participation.
And answer the questions we need.
Right.
And provide.
I mean, that's really what this is about. I mean, we're all on the same team, so I don't want to get the feeling like we're...
No, this is exactly...
I would like to backtrack to the library issue or question, and your definitions and,
What's your number? What,
well, let me see. 24. You get a totally different answer to any of these if you are not assuming that you're going to have availability for service somehow. And if we are not going to address that question, the answer to this is not going to be very meaningful.
can you show what your bullet points, Jim, that you suggested?
Those.
Right, but a small, medium, okay. I guess you've taken it with arrangement with Louisville, and you started out with just arrangement with a larger facility. Could be Louisville, could be Boulder, could be something else.
This is an alternative approach entirely.
Right, but it's a different, it's a big difference because first of all, you could have a small digital center without a continued arrangement with Louisville and get everything you need somewhere, with another library. If you have a legitimate library, albeit a children's library or...
Relationship with Lafayette.
Well, that's how I did it. I had you to be able to select, like, number one, with a sub-select underneath, with a continuing relationship with Louisville, without a continuing relationship with Louisville.
Or anybody.
You went somewhere else.
Or anybody.
But
just
anyway, so
only
you
want
could
that.
select this and then select underneath it, yes, continue with Louisville, or don't continue with Louisville. Or you could pick a children-oriented facility with a continuing relationship with Louisville, not having a continuing relationship with Louisville. And Lisa suggested...
Just by saying, pick all that you want, but the
Yes.
choices are the small media center, the small media center, a children's
That's
library.
what I was suggesting.
Continued arrangement with Louisville or other
Yep.
provider,
For
full-service
for major
library.
facilities or something.
No, I
yes.
don't think it does the same thing at all. The point is,
No,
for
I like
example,
your suggestion.
there's a lot of bias, there's a lot of expressed opinion among these sort of in-crowd that's discussed this. Let's do a digital center here and continue the bigger relationship with Louisville.
But they could pick both of those.
Okay?
Yeah, they can.
Together, those two. But the point is, if I can pick which ones I want there, and I also can pick the continuing relationship with Louisville, I don't know what it ties to. I don't know, to me, it has to be paired. So that it's telling, what I want to find out from it is I want to know what pairs specifically they want. For example, if,
I think
it's the pairing that
we left it
matters.
that we're going to come back.
Right.
I think we clearly understand, and
Okay.
we left it that we'll come back to you with some different options on this.
I like the idea, though.
Rather than beat this question to death, it may be a different question or different form, different form.
Let's not beat anything to death anymore.
I would just, one thing I learned from the 2007 survey, those of you who've been through it, and I can send it to you again if you'd like to look at it again, but when you start asking, do you want this, do you want that, how, nothing came out. I don't think anything in the entire survey with all of the stuff that was in there got above 30, 35%. I don't think anything got above 40%. And the board at the time pretty much said, nothing's going to pass, nothing's above 40%. Now, when you start asking, be prepared for the fact that you're not going to get a lot of people who are going to support, it could very well happen that you might get an answer that says, get rid of the Louisville arrangement. I mean, are you prepared for that answer? And what percentage are you going to say it's not popular? If it gets 30%?
Right.
40%? So
We are just for that answer, though.
Well,
That's what
this
happens.
question does need a lot more work, a lot more work.
And it's
There's no
important.
doubt.
This is important, and
So work on that one.
So, Joe,
Work on that one.
I'm interested in you brought it up. What is it you feel you want to get out of this question, so when they go working on it, they know what you're trying to find out?
Personally, it comes down to me of, are we going to go on our own with a full-service library, or do something smaller and hitch up with somebody?
Right, that's the question.
And that's really, and then what makes sense is hitching up, and I'd be happy for it to be Louisville or anybody else. I don't want to use that as a sledgehammer with Louisville or anybody else. Either we made that mistake and, the last time we talked library. And Louisville's concerned about what we're going to do, and I think it's fair for them to be concerned. And that's what I really want to know. I don't see us, saying we want a child-oriented facility and nothing else, and we don't care if we're hooked up with anyone else, that.
Well,
Yeah.
just remember, we're trying to understand that if we were to build some kind of indoor space, whether it's 20,000, 50,000, or 100,000 square feet, whatever it is, we want to know what are the things that people would like to see in indoor space.
I'm getting that sense from
That's
it.
not the same as where this question is going, and I would just, there are a lot of people who feel very passionately about the library issue in this town. One of the concerns I think we have to be careful of is that we give it short, since it's not a dedicated survey, that, people, those advocates are saying, well, gosh, this isn't really fair. You threw this into this isn't the right format. I mean, it's very likely that to really get at this question, it would require more context than we have room and the place to give it here. We might have to explain things more thoroughly and what these options are, rather than just, slip these in as questions. So, I mean, I still have some concerns about it, but we'll give you options and see what suits your purposes.
Okay. I would at some point like to open this up for public comment.
That's what I was going to suggest.
And so if we could do that with anybody in the public that's here, that's lasted through this discussion, I'd like to say something.
Rita Dozal, Superior resident. Who?
Just kidding.
That was who I was this morning when I woke up. I don't know who I am now. I think that from this library thing, which is where Chris was just going a little bit ago, you asked, what would you like to see? A small media digital, I don't even know what that is. I think it needs to be defined a little better than that. A child-oriented, and you could say pick one or all above or none. And I think that would get to that answer. But the thing that is missing is what you said earlier, Lisa, and I think Sandy and others have said too. What are you willing to pay for? It's not your wish list. Do you want to go to Louisville? Do you want to go to the moon? Do you want to go to Mars? It could cost a hell of a lot more money for all those different options, and you got to know. So an easy way, when I go on the Marriott site to try and find a motel or a hotel, and I'm trying to look in Cancun or New York or wherever, or just put $1 sign, that's kind of a cheap option. $2 signs, get a little more pricey. $3 signs, that's probably the Louisville exhibit right now. $4 signs, that's going to be a library, a full-service library. We don't have to tell them it's going to be $25 for $100,000 of taxable valuation versus this and this and this. Just come up with some kind of idea. Am I talking a $1 sign or $4 signs?
Well, sorry.
No, so that would be a suggestion about the cost. And then many of these are just, I never saw the survey because I couldn't get a copy of it. It's not in the packet for the public. So when I see him now looking at it sitting beside Brent there, it's just, there's too much detail. Just way too much detail. Choose A, B, C, or D, 1, 2, 3, 4. It has to be down to more simple. And I don't need a lot of discussion. I do think you say, we're looking at this for the town of Superior. And there are many locations that we can consider, so that's it, period. You don't have to say anything more, don't tie to any, this would be my perspective anyway. I would like to get the survey and be able to answer it, but I love the idea that it's going to be a large enough randomly selected sample so we can get some idea. And when people follow up with me, whether it's online or by telephone, and they say, you haven't completed my survey, you went to Larry Miller Toyota and you got service, what you haven't completed. And I always go back to them and say, well, I talked to Larry Miller. And they go, what? Well, he's been dead for like 10 years. So it's always kind of fun. I always say that. Can I talk to Larry Miller about this? But so if you say to someone about being anonymous, we're just taking your input. It'll be thrown into just a general bucket. Nobody cares anymore because we all recognize that electronically you can kind of keep track of me, but you won't keep track of Rita Dozell versus my email versus my IP addresses versus something else. Just when you call them back, all you have to do is say, I'm doing this for blah, 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 and I will, collect your information and throw it into a random sample, and that's it. Nobody's going to worry about identifying back to them specifically. So get it simpler. Just ask the question, do you like this, this, this? Give them an idea, is it $1 sign or $4 signs? And that should be very much better input.
The NSA knows exactly what you're answering, I'm telling you.
I tell you, I don't know why everybody's worried about this. I worked with a company, did some consulting, they know everything. I could find out everything about each of you and all your calls, and I can stop your calls too. A Canadian company can do that called Red Dragon.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on this? I'm reluctant to ask, do you have what you need from us? Or would you like more help?
Quotes around, air quotes.
Smile, but the rest are smiling.
We're a step closer, so we're going to hear back from you.
We have one more.
He's smiling.
Yes, a genuine smile of happiness and contentment. So I did want to ask one quick thing. Patrick, if we could pull up like questions 8, 9, 10, those. I just want to get some, the board feedback on whether or not on this section of questions, if the board is generally, and I'm certainly very much looking forward to hearing feedback from the trustees, especially Trustee Skumatz, but if you're generally, for like, going there. So if the board is generally in favor of this sort of general format where it's just sort of listing it, having checklists, and sort of shorter and sweeter and trying to be a little bit more consistent, and then if so, we could always add, for instance, we go through age facilities, library, athletic, aquatic, indoor, other indoor, we could do outdoor, or we could break it into parks and fields and so forth. Is that?
I like it. I'm voting for like.
And the problem I have is you can put 5 for everything, and that's my problem. That's why I'd rather have it be something like first, second, third, also important, not important. I just think it makes it so that you can't just go down and say, oh my God, I want it all.
Okay.
So that's my problem with it.
So working, but generally.
You want to prioritize the choices.
Yeah,
well,
and you can only do it that.
Forces some unnecessary choices. Because if I can only pick, for example, then I have to have them all on a list. I can't have 8, 10, 11, 12 with different amenities on a list that have first, second, and third. I'd have to have a continuous list that allow me to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or whatever. But it creates some false choices for me. So I get where Lisa's going.
So if you can work with that suggestion so that people can't all put
But an emphasis on developing a consistent format for the various questions where it's sort of shorter, sweeter, and we can cover more topics.
That's not the question you just asked us.
No, it's not.
You asked us 8, 9, 10, 11,
Right.
and 12.
But you're saying, yes, and we can work on that and try to work in some priority.
But then you went on to a different summary. What was the second thing you just said? Consistent, shorter?
Well, just that you we're trying, I just wondered if, if you were happy with the format, but then, of course, Trustee Skumat said we're going to work on some prioritization, but that some of the questions, never mind. I'll take it back, because I noticed that we ask many questions in different ways in the survey. We have a lot of different ways where people may be thinking, okay, how do I answer this question now, as opposed to I just finished figuring out how to answer this question.
A survey should do that. It's called cross-verification. So if you ask me this, and I say senior room is 5, and such is 3, when you ask me to rank in priority form,
Heather, where are you going?
I may validate that. I may put senior room at the top, or it may not even be on my list of 1, 2, and 3. Maybe what you do to accommodate Lisa's comment, which is valid, is instead, when you have a long list, instead of saying 1, 2, 3 and stopping it there, allow to say 4 and 5. Right? To allow a little more prioritization in those answers.
And I wasn't just saying 1, 2, 3, but I'm just saying that we can't have it so that everything can be important.
Okay, thank you.
There is a prioritization question that follows this.
Yeah.
18.
So is there anything more?
No.
Thank you, guys. This is a ton of work. It is painful, no doubt.
But what's the time frame we're talking about now? You guys have this ready tomorrow? Probably not?
Yes.
Well, I don't know what, we've given our guidance. I'm not sure what it is.
I think that they're just going to take what we've talked about, redraft it, bring it back and say, okay, are we closer, or is this it? And then we'll then fine tune it from there.
But Lisa was going to sit down with them too.
Well, I said I would get the questions, I didn't say how I would get them.
Are we all open to getting drafts on an ongoing basis, so we don't have to wait until 2 weeks from now to see it, but we provide feedback in a timely fashion?
I think it's going to be hard to get drafts and do this over email. I don't even know if we can do that.
I don't know if we can do that
I think
either.
that it'd be better to be able to review them with plenty of time and then come back and talk about it in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it gets really complicated when we have lots of drafts and you're responding to different things and you can't.
You're right.
I mean, if I show you just the way we had to collect your comments so far, it's just unbelievable. So what we'll do is we'll put up a next beta, a new draft that'll go up on we'll send you the link for that.
With a password.
And with a password.
Password
and,
being password.
And you'll respond to that.
Okay.
So, and we'll send you emails when that is available. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience with us.
We haven't adjourned yet.
No, we haven't adjourned.
But we could.
Is there anything further that anybody else wants to bring up? This meeting's adjourned. We're only 40 minutes.
Well, we were a half hour.